How y'all doing? Okay, we got Chas waiting in the back. Call-in link is in the description. I apologize for posting it a little bit late, but here we go. I'm gonna post it again. Let's get some people. Let's get some conversation going. Um, just tough loss, right? I think it's really difficult to win games like this, but I do want to point out that the Raptors once again surrender over 50% from the field. The defense has fallen off a cliff. I would really, you know, I thought I was overdoing these low light films, but man, just watching this game in real time, I can see all of these breakdowns. Some positives, right? Some positives. Reportedly, on the block, Chris Boucher did you a big service tonight, really showing exactly what the best version of Chris Boucher looks like, crashing the glass, being active, hitting a couple of threes. That was great. Love that. Precious Achua looking a lot better. I like the off-ball movement from him. Again, just athletic. He can really pose some problems for the back line of the defenders, especially with how defenses like to collapse on Pascal Siakam. Scottie Barnes. You're going to look at the box score and you're going to say this is the best game Scottie Barnes has played in months. I think it was good. It was good, right? He got to the line. That is the part I liked. He was active defensively, but Pensare basketball has received word, right, to be more critical, more fair of Scottie's performances. So we're going to do that. I don't like his decision making as much tonight as I did in the past two games. There were a couple of plays. I mean, he ended up with 3 turnovers. I can tell you that it very easily could have ended up like 5 or 6. A little bit loose with the ball, a little bit slow on the decision making. Not something you usually say about Scottie Barnes, but a great bounce back game from him. He was active. Now, just want to plug something. This channel is not sponsored. It's not. We don't have brand sponsorships. We've had tons of requests. I don't see anything that I feel is worth aligning with right now. But there's a video that dropped yesterday on Pensare basketball YouTube, which if you have not watched, please watch it. I will get into a little bit more about that video a little bit later and show a bit of a clip of it for those of you who haven't watched it, but it is an interview with Scottie's trainer. It's 56 minutes, and everything I've heard about it from people who've watched it is that it is very insightful, and it's a refreshing listen to those of you who might be a little bit concerned about where Scottie's season is going. So definitely check that video out after the stream if you haven't already. If you've been kind of just putting it off saying, I'll check it out Sunday, why not tonight? Check it out. We need that video to blow up. We need it to do well. We absolutely need it to do well. And again, I will get into that a little bit more into the second half of how you can help. Let's get to some callers. Erica, thank you so much. Erica, if you ever feel like just coming on and sharing that story about Scottie, I would be delighted to have our audience hear it because I loved hearing about it. And if you ever feel like coming on, no pressure, not calling you out, but I really loved hearing about it, and I think, yeah, it was really cool. All right, just getting some more reviews here. Okay, first up, let's go to Chaz. Chaz, how you doing, sir?
Hey Robert, how's it going?
Do you like my new brick background?
Hey, I like it. Looks
Do you
good.
like it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
It's very.
it's for all of the Fred VanVleet shots. I built a brick background for him.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
kidding.
brown
I'm kidding.
stone
I'm
though.
kidding.
You
No,
know,
no, no, no,
that's pretty
no
funny.
low shot. No low shots on him. All right. Okay.
You were
What'd you
getting
think of the
ready
game?
for that. I knew you were saving up that joke for the new background. That's pretty cool. Um, you know, I hear you not wanting to. Always laud Scottie. He seemed like the only guy engaged on the floor in the starting group. Um, I really, I watched the beginning of the game, and it wasn't just the fact that they were missing shots. They just didn't seem to me to actually want to play. They didn't seem like they wanted to play. There was no urgency, no energy, no back cuts, no movement, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have their legs, and they were looked like they were going through the motions. There's something seriously going on. I got to tell you, something seriously going on. I think I know what it is, and it'll be solved at the trade deadline. That's what I think. I think Fred's gone. That's what I really think. I think his writing's on the wall. If Pascal didn't foul out tonight, you probably may not even come back in the game.
That is that is very true. First of all,
Yeah,
kudos to Nick Nurse for riding the hot hand for once. I
yeah,
feel like some of us have been calling for this for what feels like a year and a half now, and it felt like really great to have our prayers answered because
well,
that unit was just way more engaged defensively. We saw it in the first quarter, right? The Raptors dug themselves an absolute hole, right?
yeah,
In the first 6 minutes, they couldn't get a shot off. They couldn't guard a corpse. Dejounte Murray, full disclosure, one of my favorite players, one of my absolute favorite players, one of the realest human beings in the NBA. I love this guy like more than probably he's one of my top five players outside of the Raptors sphere that I love watching, and I've watched a lot of Hawks basketball. The Raptors dodged a bullet tonight. Clint Capela not playing, um, Bogdanovic
yeah,
not playing. Those are two really good players. How good are
yeah,
those players? They would start on the Raptors easily if they
yeah.
were on this team. Easily start on
Well,
the
yeah,
Raptors.
yeah,
So, Fred VanVleet, I know I read a comment today. Someone said his days as a starting point guard in the NBA are over.
yeah.
I think
I
that
don't
that might
disagree
be
with
it.
that. I think I look at him, I look at his body language, I look at his face. When he hung his head, he's hung his head down there after he missed that last second shot 3 or 4 games ago, one of the last losses before tonight. Um, you know, I don't know what he was doing. Was he trying to, save face? He was trying to, maybe it was some kind of a divine intervention, and he realizes I am no good. I'm not sure what it is, Robert, but I've played basketball and I watched a lot of basketball, and I I know what it's like to play on a team, as do you.
Hmm.
I think he's lost the room. I really do. I think he's lost the room, and I think they're trying to maximize his value right now and give him. They'll do the right thing by him and give him. Send him somewhere, and we won't get a lot back for him. We might get some picks. We might get one young player. I know you got to match salaries, but it's only what is it 18 million his salary this year?
It's a little bit
20?
more.
Yeah,
He's
20.
making north of 22,
Well,
21.
we'll pick up a couple of expiring contracts. Something that we can, like Danny Green. I don't know. Danny's playing with who right now? Is it Memphis?
Yep.
It's somebody
Philly
like
traded
that,
him.
that you're not going to re-sign. But yeah, the defense fell off a cliff. But I just don't, I don't see any urgency for them to really want to play. Then they kind of, like I said the last time I talked to you, I said, they kind of figure out something. And actually, it was the bench this time that came in and said, "Oh, we don't want to go to the morgue. We're going to give it a try." And they got back to within 6 or 7 or something, or five. And anyway,
Well, let's be honest. I mean, like, the Raptors built up some steam on that 3 game win streak, right? To those who, and again, like, some of the talking points that these guys bring up, coaches, I've heard Nick Nurse talk about how this team can go toe to toe with any team in the NBA. I don't think that's true. I've heard Fred VanVleet say that he's put up some very good performances against good teams. I don't think that's
yeah,
true either.
yeah.
So I think, first of all,
Well,
just,
he
you know,
has, but not this year.
I don't. I'm sorry. I think most teams that he's
He's
matched
played.
up, I feel like there are very rare good Fred VanVleet performances against teams that he's not got a very positive matchup on the other end. Um,
You're right, but he has done it.
he
But
has
just
done it,
I
but
was
I
going to say
mean,
about one thing before. Like
mhm,
I don't want to keep. I know you got lots of callers now.
yep.
I just think that I don't understand. I think they can. I think they can play with a lot of teams with
Hmm.
a lot of heart, a lot of desire, and man to man, and play more of the scrambling defense. I don't understand why they're playing the zone tonight all night. You could say, "Oh, Trey Murray can shoot the ball from. He can shoot the ball from anywhere. He can
You just
create
say
his own
Trey Murray.
shot."
You
But
blended them into the same one player, right? Trey Murray,
but
Dejounte Murray. You mean Trey
I'm
Young?
sorry, Trey Young.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Trey Young can shoot the ball from anywhere. Why were we playing zone? It wasn't working. We weren't couldn't get the rebounds. We couldn't. We. I thought that's the only thing that Nurse hasn't tried. We didn't get very favorable whistles for the home team either. But I thought if these guys are lethargic, why don't you get them out guarding people instead of standing out there with their arms out like this?
I'm gonna put something
And
on the screen for you right now.
yeah,
I just
sure,
want your reaction to it,
yeah,
if I can get it here. I'm gonna pull the comment off. Hold on, so you can see the whole thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so basically, I think this is a pretty large sample size. You know, for anyone who's bought into this narrative by Fred VanVleet that, oh well, I didn't have the ball, that's why we're struggling. Actually, quite wow, my throat. Quite the contrary. It seems that in the games where he's kept his usage a little bit low, shot attempts low, creation a little bit low, and which is, you know, and to everyone who says, you know, that I'm just unabashedly just hating on the guy, go back and watch the first month of Pensare basketball during the regular season and notice how many times I paid compliments to Fred VanVleet for playing off the ball. I'm not just unabashedly hating the
Come
guy.
on.
My entire that low light shit that started this whole movement towards film breakdowns on this channel, trying to expose how much this guy is hurting your offense. That only started when he started going back up to 22-23% usage, because I've seen this play out. I've seen it play out too many times. I've watched him do it. I've watched him hijack the offense. And right now, honestly, man, like you said, a couple of picks and expirings. I would be. I don't want to say this. I don't want to say this out loud, but like, I would be surprised if you can get a couple of picks right now.
Well, um, I know there's lots of basketball left in Fred. It's just not here. Not at this. Not with his team. He's lost the room, and he's playing like it. And he's not really. He's not putting out his effort forward. He hides behind a sore back or this or that. But you can see it on the bench. Nobody talks to him.
Yep.
I think that GMs know what Fred's going to bring to the team,
Yep.
another team, and so and so does Masai. So it's not like he's not going to be a starting guard, but he's going to be a really valuable bench player, leader, hard nosed defensive guy for another team that could be a contender. We'll see,
A
but
leader.
he,
Yeah.
he has to go. He's just not. He's not. It doesn't fit. He doesn't want to play on the team anymore. That's the way I know he's a pro, and I know you, but you look at the team and you watch the team, Robert. You know, I play it. You play it.
Mm-hmm.
We're students of basketball. This
Yep.
guy is gone. It's just a matter of time.
Yep. I agree
So
with you.
so so we don't really need to talk to him anymore. It's kind of like why are we even they're just putting him out there because they got to keep his value somewhere. You can't bench him.
Honestly,
Then
I would sit him.
they should rest him.
I would
I
sit
said
him.
that like 5 games ago.
I would absolutely sit him. I don't think he's doing himself any favors right now. And look, if would I be surprised if I see Fred VanVleet traded to the Lakers tomorrow and then for the rest of the season he averages like 16 to 18 points per game? No, I would not be surprised by that at all.
Yeah,
This is a guy in
yeah,
a contract year. He is aggressively betting on himself. I get all of that, right?
yeah,
But as you said, it's not here. Anyways, Chaz, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you
yeah,
calling in, man. Cheers.
yeah, yeah. No problem, man. Take care.
Have a good night. Alrighty. Next up, we got NY 4 Raps, and we got FA. Brothers, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah,
Hey, can
and
you
before
guys hear me?
anyone accuses me of using that word brothers incorrectly, they are actually brothers to each other. Okay, how are you guys doing? You're back home.
I'm doing
Yeah,
good.
I came back.
Welcome back from Jamaica, man. How are you doing?
Came back before the game. What a game!
Can you
Yeah,
guys hear me?
Yeah,
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
And you, sir, are using one of those backgrounds,
Yeah,
which, by the way, I've
I'm on
fallen
my
for that
laptop.
before. Yeah, I've fallen for that before. I literally thought like you live in a mansion. I'm like, wow, that's
I do live
nice.
in a
Nice
mansion,
piano.
though.
Nice grand piano there, buddy. What'd you guys think of the game?
I'm actually confident now that we're tanking. So I think it was a good game for us because the tanking won today. I can't
Yeah.
believe that Atlanta played yesterday. They didn't have their big man, and we lost to them from the beginning. like the last guy said, Fred gotta go. He has to go.
Yeah.
He forgot how to pass today compared to, so his old habit came back so quick.
I
You know
think
what? I mean, I'm not surprised.
I think it was going through the motions. I think Fred is literally checked out. It was kind of really obvious. He wasn't trying, and obviously the point guards were blowing by our two guards. It was really embarrassing. Like they couldn't keep Trey Young and Digital Moore in front of them. But
And
I'm glad. I'm glad that Scottie had
I
a
kind
great
of see the click between Fred and Pascal too, because something really happened today. There was that Pascal was kind of not there. It wasn't available today. I know.
Well, I mean,
I think Pascal was right, but
he's an emotional guy, right? I mean, like, okay, so empathy, a little bit of empathy to Pascal, right? And look, I know you guys follow the Twitterverse, what's happening in the league, who unfollowed who. I know you guys follow that, so I saved this part for you. CJ McCollum was on ESPN yesterday, and he was talking about how there is a disgruntled player on the Toronto Raptors, or he mentioned a couple of players might be disgruntled on the Raptors, and that he can't talk about it due to tampering. Now, if you can't talk about it due to tampering, that means he knows something, and what he knows is something that I know that I can't talk about either. But what I will tell you is, do you remember a few weeks ago when I said, or maybe a few days ago, I said we need to change Fred VanVleet's slogan, and I've varied it a little bit, you know. But one of them was "Tell on yourself," right? Look at this. This is a picture that Fred VanVleet posted, okay, on his Instagram, or yeah, it was on his Instagram, and I do not follow him, but I do check it from time to time just in case, because I know that he likes to tell on himself. Do you notice something about this picture that is a little bit awkward?
He's a loner.
That's always been the case, but something else about that picture. Just look at the corner.
You're talking about Pascal's coach?
No, I'm talking about the corner of that picture. Do you not see that little emoji in the corner?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lip sealed, right?
Yeah.
I want to know what passive aggressive weirdo decides to put that little emoji in the corner. It's like, bro, either you put it right in the center so we can all see it, but why are you dropping clues like this is like, where's Waldo? I know this guy. I know people like him. I know what he's doing. The 3 dice bet on yourself bullshit after the initial conversation with Nick Nurse that did not go how he wanted it to. Look, we are seeing the body language. I'm seeing everything you're talking about. Him and Thad have been sitting next to each other literally every single day. They are like this right now. Probably both going to get dealt. Boucher has been putting his arm around Fred VanVleet every single time he, checks out of the game and stuff, and he's been, hugging him in the corner. He's probably out too. Yes, this organization has made a decision, and I believe that decision is that this core isn't working. And I think that they were always on the fence about it, to be honest. I really do. I don't think that they Siakam, Detective Pensare.
I agree, right? But I was
That's funny.
Worried that they're going to win 4 straight, or maybe win 4 or 5, maybe beat New York the next game. Then they're going to force the organization to reconsider. So this was a perfect loss for me, and I'm glad that Scottie played very well.
I think he played okay. So the defense, amazing. Rebounding, great. Scoring, all right. Good. There were a couple of times tonight where he had a wide open layup.
Yes.
And he didn't know. He passed out.
Yes.
Like one of them was a turnover, which was like crazy. The other one was almost a turnover.
2 of them were turnovers.
Both of them were turnovers?
Yeah.
I think there were 3, 2 turnover, then the other one Boucher caught the ball and then tried to reverse it and missed the layup.
Yeah. We're getting all sorts of compliments about your fake piano, by the way. I love it. You know what? Like I gotta try one of those epic backgrounds myself, just like front like crazy. Maybe just put like a London background in the background or something, or Eiffel Tower, doing this live from Paris. It'll never get the lighting right, but someone said ask him if it's a Steinway. I don't think he can zoom that close into the picture, guy. But yeah, so I thought Scottie, look, Brian said something very interesting in our interview, and he said his game is not mature. Did you guys watch the interview, by the way?
Yeah, I watched everything, like literally the beginning to the end. And you're right, right? And he said when he is Scottie can easily score 32 and 15 rebounds every game. Today he got to 27 without literally trying. Imagine when he had those two open layups and he passed the ball out,
Do you
right?
know, imagine what happens when they have to guard him for three?
Yeah.
Like, look, like you remember the part of the interview where I asked him, if I tell you he's averaging 32 points, like 4 years from now, 32 points, this many rebounds, this
Mhm.
many, would you be surprised? It was like no
No,
flinch,
no,
no, I wouldn't be surprised.
no.
It's so easy for him to score, and yeah, like when Pascal was out of the game, it was still easy for him to score. He still got to
Yes.
he got to the line. He can do all of this. Like one of my biggest talking points at the start of the season was if you give him the same usage as Pascal, if you give him the same role, he's going to put up nearly identical stats. The
Yeah.
only difference will be way fewer threes and a little less efficient, more turnovers,
So
which is something you expect. He's 21.
So imagine if you put a lot of shooters around Scotty, right? It's gonna open the floor for him completely. Like all those bricks that all the players are missing, those
Mhm.
are like gonna be ready-made assists for him. So they need to restructure this team around Scotty and just move on from Pascal and
Yeah. And look, I mean, like, I'm not making any pretense that structuring an offense right now around Scotty Barnes is going to result in a ton of wins. It probably won't. You'll probably
Not
be
with
a
this crew
lottery
we
team.
have.
but
Okay.
that's for the better, right? Because then you have like a top five talent that they can grow together.
Absolutely. Um, yeah. So, anyways, thank you guys for coming on. Any final takeaways?
Let the tank keep rolling.
Yeah.
Let
Thanks.
the tank roll. Let the tank roll.
We're gonna
I
look.
have a,
I mean,
yeah.
this is the first time I think with my love for the Raptors, this is the first time I want us to lose to the Knicks,
You didn't,
and I'm from New York.
yeah, there's a lot of road games coming up.
Yeah.
And look, tonight, once again, I brought this point up before. Losses like this hurt more than like a loss to San Antonio well, a loss to San Antonio hurts the tank a lot right now, to be honest. But a loss to the Atlanta Hawks, which is a team that you're chasing in the standings, a team that's slumping, a team that was missing two very good players, who's coming on a back-to-back. Look, I can't tell you how many times this season where I've said, that's the final nail, that's the final nail. And I feel like the boy who cried wolf because I feel like, once again, I'm early. I was early on Fred VanVleet. I was early on Scottie. I'm early on everything. Unfortunately, I'm
True.
just early.
I
It's just, I
agree.
don't understand why I'm so early in life, but I am early.
Yeah, even when Scotty was playing really bad, you still supported him. You still said, "Yeah,
Oh,
something's
bro,
going
I
on."
would support Scottie till the moon. Like I know what this guy is. I know his heart. Like that's it to me. Like I support him for the same reason I supported Dejounte Murray. Dejounte Murray had a very rough start in San Antonio. A lot of injuries, a lot of tough shit. But
That's what I was telling Paul throughout
I
the
know
game
what
that he should
drives.
be making shots.
Pardon?
That's what I was telling Paul during the game that Johnson Murray, like when he started his career, he struggled. And I
Oh,
was
for
thinking that,
sure. But it's like sometimes you know too much, right? And the more you know, the more information you have to sift through. So so for me, when when I tell people this, they always like kind of laugh at me. But one of the biggest reasons I've always supported Dejounte Murray was who he is. It's not. It's yes. The physical profile is amazing. You know, he's 6'5", he's long, he's athletic, etc., etc. But it's who he is. It's his relationship with his grandmother. Rest in peace. It's his relationship with his dad. It's just who he is. And when you get to know who a player is, and you understand where they're coming from, what drove them, where they were in AAU, where they were when they were 17, 18, what they've gone through, what personal tragedies they've gone through, how they've bounced back, you start to get an idea of what makes them tick. Once you understand that about a player, then you can confidently back them up even when they're having a nightmare season. And he had a couple, of tough seasons in San Antonio, a lot of losing, a lot of injuries, but you support the guy. Same thing with Jason Tatum. Again, understanding what makes him tick, understanding his relationship with his mom, his son, his relationship with Boston, like how he reacts to losses. These kind of things really are important. And I think that every general manager who has ever drafted a super bouncy, athletic, McDonald's All-American, and then wondered why that player didn't work out, it didn't work out because you got blinded by the dunks. You got blinded by this guy going one-on-one against a fucking chair in an open gym, right? And just being wowed by the athletic potential. But at the end of the day, what creates greatness is not how high you can jump or how fast you can run, 100 meters. It's how you respond when things don't go right, because it's not going to go right a lot. And it's like there are a lot of people in this world who quit when things don't go right.
Yeah.
So when you identify a player who responds well to adversity, which no doubt every NBA player, CJ McCollum said something brilliant on the ESPN show yesterday. He said, you would struggle too if you had to live your life out on TV every day. Hell yes. I've had days where I have completely struggled. I've had days where I missed my alarm. We all have those days. So it's like, how do you bounce back? Do you, there's a...
And I think for that same reason, that's why I respect Pascal a lot, because he was down in the bubbles and things like that. And the bounce back was, like, I respect the bounce back for Pascal.
Yeah. The Yi Jianlian slander. Alex, that was actually a reference to Yi Jianlian, the empty gym, the chair. So congratulations, my friend. You actually caught it. Thank you so much. All right.
All right, thanks.
NY4 Raps, FA, yeah, and good luck on your prediction that the Raptors will lose to the Knicks.
So the
And
Knicks on Monday, yeah.
tank for Wemby. It's on. All right, cheers, guys.
Right.
Next up we got Morse. We're gonna take now bear with me. For those of you who watch this, please just sit through a 2-minute promo for those who haven't. I just want to, before we get to Mo, I just want to say something. Okay. Negative content drives views. We all know that, right? I made a video about who leaked, the media stuff. We got 19,000 views. Could I have made my interview with Brian very controversial? Yes, I could have. I could have called it Scottie's trainer response to the haters. I could have called it that, and it would have gotten 10,000 views in the first day. I didn't do that. I wanted to keep it positive because the video is so overwhelmingly positive. I didn't want to make it clickbaity. Now, unfortunately, that does hurt the algorithm. It truly does, okay? Because when you don't make something urgent, if you don't make something sizzle, if you don't say, this is the greatest thing ever, people don't click on it. And that's just the truth. And that's why you see a lot of red arrows and a lot of controversial hot takes on YouTube get millions of views. Unfortunately, I think we do live in a world that is 90% driven towards negative content. This was an overwhelmingly positive interview. It talked about everything about Scottie Barnes. It talked about who he was. It talks about who he is right now. It's about how hard he works. It's about him, what makes him tick. It's about so many things, and there's so much insight, and it's about who Brian is and the work that he's doing with kids. And I think that, if you're an aspiring coach, if you're anyone who's anything to basketball, if you have kids who are going through AAU, or even if they're not pros, but they just want to be good at basketball because it's good for your health to play sports, I think you're going to get a lot out of this interview. So my kind request to you is to sit through this next 2 minutes and just watch this little clip of it, because I think it's important. I do want to say one more thing. I screwed up. I posted it, and then I didn't quite catch the ending. Was a little bit extended. There was a black pause at the ending. When I went to cut it out in the YouTube editor, unfortunately, it reprocessed the video, which allowed, it kind of hurts the algorithm and how the video is pushed out. This video has 4,000 views. I'm trying to do battle with something that has millions of views, which is everything the media said about Scottie. This video is a response to that. So what I need from everybody after this video is, even if you've already watched it, do me a favor, just play it in the background and just let it run. Okay, do me that. Or share it on social. If you have a Twitter account, put it up on social. We need this video to do well, guys. I've been talking to Brian for weeks, maybe months, about getting him on to Pensare basketball. I've been talking to other people about getting them on to Pensare basketball and having these types of deep dive conversations. I wanted to wait until we had 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 subs and this channel got a little bit bigger. So it is important for this video to do well. It is a proof of concept in a lot of ways for this channel's ability to be able to make positive content work and get it out there. So just going to play a quick clip from that, and then we're going to get to Mo. Mo, hang tight. I'm going to be with you very quickly, okay? Sorry, guys. Hang on. Here goes. Person who was there through a lot of Scottie's off-season workouts. Not all, but a lot of it. There's been a lot of recent talk about how maybe he needs to work a little bit harder this off-season, this coming off-season, because maybe he didn't put in the work in the previous off-season. Now, I'm sure that most smart people know that work doesn't always translate to on-court results right away, especially when you're trying to do as many complicated things as Scottie's doing. So I guess I feel like he would be a very credible source, probably a much better source than someone who was never there to begin with Scottie, to talk about what did his offseason actually look like? Like what's the work that you guys did?
I mean, a month after the season, he was already a different player, you know. So he put in like, you know, 2 days, some days, but he was in the gym consistently. But yeah, he worked out hard, man. He worked on all parts of his game. He's a better player. I mean, making shots and winning, you know what I mean? If he was having the exact same season and they were winning, and it would be nothing, you know what I mean? So like, people question things when things aren't going exactly how they're supposed to be going. I think of course he would want to play better. He would want to have play better in different spots. But I think a lot of it, he's still trying to figure it out. He's still learning, you know, where his space is on the court, as far as like where he fits in and how he can contribute. And, you know, he's still finding other ways to contribute that are outside of the box. But I mean, the question of like work ethic is like absurd, you know. Like I travel back and forth to Toronto a few times every couple weeks, you know what I mean? So we can continue to put in extra work, but not be too taxing on his body. So, you know, the work is just the duration of the work. The work is going to be the work, and it's continued throughout the summer and into the season. So
one of the biggest reasons that I was such an advocate for Scottie was his work ethic, his passion for the game. It doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, we can talk all day about what type of player he'll become, and, you know, I'm sure that you and I probably, you know, have a different expectation of the type of player he'll be 3-4 years from now than maybe a lot of people. But one thing I would never, ever in my wildest dreams ever believe is that Scottie Barnes did not work hard, or that Scottie Barnes was a bad teammate. Like, these two things are unquestionable. So does he hear it? Does he care about it? Does he care about this noise, this chirping, all the Twitter stuff, the you know, all that stuff? Does he?
No, I don't think he does. I think he, like I said it before, he never gets too high, never gets too low on himself. And it's a consistent, like he has great habits. He doesn't have really bad habits outside of the court. So he's always doing the stretching. He's always at the facility. So over time, like, the work's gonna show, you know what I mean? Like, it could happen.
That too. He said that. All right, let's get that video out there, guys. I'm counting on you. Thank you so much, by the way. The comments to this video have been, I know the views aren't doing as well as I hoped. I want to be real about that. I want to be honest. Maybe it's because I posted on Friday. Maybe it's because I posted at the wrong time. Maybe it's because I posted the wrong thumbnail. Maybe it's because I did something stupid. But the comments and the engagement, this is our most watched video in terms of actual engagement, how long people are watching it, how much people like it, how many people are commenting. It's amazing. And to that person out there, I forget your name, but you wrote like 8 paragraphs or 7 paragraphs about how much this channel means to you. Please know that I read that comment to my girlfriend, and man, it's crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. Thank you so much. I want to ask a quick question to the chat. James D, if you're still listening, perchance, my man, were you ever a moderator on Real GM? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Mo, thanks for waiting, my guy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You talked about Boucher, and he had a good game, but I thought in the end, near the end, when Barnes he was struggling. I thought Boucher was doing some untimely cuts, clogging the paint. He did it twice, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of them he thought Scottie was going to attack the paint or get his shot off in the paint. So it looked like either he was cutting or dashing to the rim for offensive rebounds, but I just thought he made it harder for Scottie when he was already shooting well from 3, and you just space the floor. If Scottie's posting Trae Young, I think you got to keep the floor spread, you know.
I thought his handle was a little bit loose tonight. Scottie's like there's a couple of times where the ball just kind of got away from him a little bit. So not quite like last game was totally different. Like he had the ball on a string last game. Tonight it was a little bit different. I think there's a difference between, straight line driving and having to create the way Siakam creates. Cause I think in a lot of ways, like I know there's been a lot of talk about Scottie being the center tonight, lately. Raptors Republic just did a whole breakdown about how he's thriving as the roller. Aaron Rose on Instagram released this thing about how he's scoring like I think it's 1.48 or 1.52 points per possession as the roll man on pick and rolls, and that's all good and great. That's not going to be his role in the NBA. I'll tell you that. I don't care. I don't give a shit if he scores 2.1 points per possession. He's not playing that role long term. It's good to know that he can do that. But tonight, I think that his creation was a little bit up and down, if I'm being straight up. Like, what'd you think of his passing? Because he didn't have a ton of assists tonight. That's not entirely his fault. Guys didn't hit shots. He found Fred VanVleet wide open for a ton. Kept passing him. He kept bricking him. So what'd you make of his overall game tonight? And by the way, I agree with you on the Boucher thing. I think what was commendable was his hustle, right? And on a team where a lot of guys aren't quite, I don't want to say trying because I don't want to be Skip Bayless. Someone already made that comparison once and I don't want to hear it again. But I think there's like an intensity that you have to dial it up to. And I think the Atlanta Hawks just played, I hate to say it, harder. I think they played harder. Every single time they were a little bit on the ropes. The Raptors cut it to 8, 10. Boom, there go the Hawks. Boom, there go the Hawks. So I don't know. It's yeah. But what'd you think of Fred tonight?
Okay, the issue, and I think it goes for both Fred and Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
Pascal obviously being the better player and having a much better season, but on nights when they're struggling offensively, they're almost giving you they're actually a net negative because their defense has fallen off a cliff that there's almost no point in playing them, especially Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember watching a possession late in the fourth where it was the Vision 6-9 lineup, right? It was the Long Boys lineup, and we cut it to about 8. Pascal's defending DeJounte Murray on the perimeter, and he just gets by him, and then the next time he fouls him, and it's like, I just thought to myself, I remember there was a time where Pascal can keep guys in front of him, but those days are gone, I guess.
I think Pascal might be feeling some of what's going on with the team. He seems to be a guy who absorbs a lot. I don't want to psychoanalyze the guy, but obviously, the bubble was not without external events creating a lot of noise. I think he came into this season probably feeling pretty good, pretty focused after all the Rico runs, having Rico Hines here, now having his brother here, right? He's coaching the 905. I mean, it seems like everything was going pretty well for Pascal Siakam in terms of the support system around him. But now rumors, every single day there's a new rumor about Fred VanVleet potentially getting traded, this guy getting traded. He's felt different. And, there's a couple of interviews that he's given where he just sort of felt exhausted. Like, he's like, we got to keep it together. Nobody wants to blame each other. It's obvious that if your star player is consistently coming out and saying, we can't be pointing fingers at each other in multiple interviews, like 3, 4, 5 interviews, that it's obvious that people are pointing fingers at each other. He wouldn't be making that point vocally unless that was happening. So it's possible that he's feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sean Stevenson says, I'd take Pat Bev for Fred in a second. You got to take the best offer, unfortunately.
I don't think Fred's worth much right now. I think we'll be shocked that if we trade him, what we'll get him for, what he's worth. I don't think he's worth an unprotected first. I don't think we can get that.
Yeah, I mean, don't underestimate desperation, right? I mean, look, Marc Gasol was not having a great season when we traded for him. Let's be real, right? He wasn't having a great season. There are certain players in the league. Look, analytically speaking, if you have a GM who is wired analytically to not watch as much game tape as well as look at just the analytics, Fred is still having a considerably above average season for a starting point guard. I just want to put that out there. So I think there will be a market for him. Unfortunately, it's a pretty small market. The conundrum here is the teams that are really bad usually tend to have a lot of future picks, unless, of course, you are the Lakers, in which case you don't have a lot of future picks and you're bad. So the Lakers are in hell. But there are a lot of teams out there that have, 6, 7, 8, 9 firsts over the next 5 years. OKC, stashes of draft picks. I think the New York Knicks also have stashes of draft picks. Problem is, with a player like this, you do have the consideration of fit, right? Is he going to be willing to be benched? Then you have the consideration of the expiring contract. Are you willing to pay him, or is this a rental? If this is a rental, you value it completely differently, But he is 28 years old. I think that's if you can you name a guy, a 28-year-old 2022 All-Star, right? That's on the market right now. I can't. That's 26 guys in the league, right? We're talking last year. We're talking 11 months ago. This guy was named to be the All-Star, right? 11 freaking months ago, he was named All-Star. So yeah, there's look, Isaiah Thomas, like he fetched, Kyrie Irving, right? You might be surprised. I think we might be surprised by the return for Fred. I also think we might be surprised that it might go the other way. I don't necessarily know how you trade a guy that's meant so much to your culture, to your fan base, etc. Look, I am in the minority when I say I don't root for this guy actively. Obviously, I know that from the blowback that I've gotten on every single post I've ever made about him or every video I've made about him. You gotta be like real. Like even this community, which is a lot of people who don't support Fred VanVleet are in this community. Every bad negative video about him on the lowlights gets like a 25% dislike rate. He has a lot of fans. So a guy who's meant that much to your fan base, that much to your championship run, can you just let him go for Pat Beverly and a second round pick? How do you even sell that to your fan base? I feel like you can't. You have to get a return on him that is at least competent. Even if it has to be competent enough that you could sell it to a fan base that, no offense, may not understand the return in full. So there has to be probably a young player that you can hype up a little bit. Just in the interim, you can hype up that. Because here's the thing. Learned this with Vince Carter. You're learning this with Yuta Watanabe. There's a lot of pushback from the fan base when a guy that you trade away or let go does well in another situation. And I got to tell you, there's a very good chance that Fred VanVleet could do very well in a lot of other situations.
Yeah. By the way, you're talking about Fred has a lot of fans. Speaking of his fans, someone posted a Josh Lewenberg tweet.
Okay.
And it reads 2 hours ago, ugly half for Fred VanVleet, who's scoreless on 6 shots through 15 minutes, only has a couple assists, and has been the primary defender on DeJounte Murray, who was 18, 5, and 5 on 7 of 9 shooting at the time. He went to the locker room briefly late in the first quarter, wonder if he's playing through something. So there's the machine at work. But if it's Scottie, it's his character, it's his hunger for the game, it's his work ethic. Just
Look, there is a relatability factor here, something that Brian and I talked about, not in that interview, but, randomly for those of you who didn't check out the last live, Brian ended up coming on at the end. I don't know if you saw that. And one of the things I was talking about is you don't necessarily talk about this guy like he's 21 because he doesn't look 21. Like he's physically developed like he's 26, right? And he's been physically developed like he's like in his mid 20s since he was like an early teenager. Like he's always been that way. He's big. We don't talk about people who are big the same way we talk about people who are small, largely because I think most of us cannot imagine properly how it feels to be that big, right? Like I have no idea what it's like to be 6'8", 6'9". I've never even remotely thought I would ever get there. I have no idea what it's like to be able to, be Dwight Howard or Shaquille O'Neal. Whenever you talk about bigs, and Scottie's obviously a guard, but when you talk about a guy who's that big, you don't give them the same benefit of doubt as you do a Steph Curry or a Fred VanVleet or a Trae Young, right? Because these guys just look like miracles. You look at a guy like Trae Young and you see him defending in the post, or you see him, giving blow-bys, and he's not, I don't want to say he's not athletic, but he's not a super athlete. He's not very big. He's not very strong. So you kind of give it, you approach the whole situation with kid gloves, if you will, right? Because you say, well, he's trying his best. Look how big he is. Look how big the other guy is, right? We have this sort of size bias in our minds. But when Scottie Barnes doesn't get a rebound, or when Andrea Bargnani doesn't get a rebound, or when Vince Carter doesn't want to dunk, we have a very different opinion about it. I think we have a bit of a size bias as human beings.
Yeah.
Because we assume that if a guy is 7 foot, he should dunk everything, he should rebound everything, he should average 30 and 30, because that's what we would do in our hypothetical brains if we were given a foot,
And
an extra
Scottie,
foot.
and Scottie is doing that, and that's why you draft him over a guy like Jalen Suggs. Because when short guys struggle, they struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just bulldoze people and say, you know what, forget it. I'm just getting to the rim. So a bad night for Scottie. Like tonight wasn't a great night for him. Still 27 points and 10 free throw attempts, 9 makes.
Yeah.
I mean, give Pascal Scottie's body. We got a superstar in our hands. Like, we got a legit guy who could potentially be top 5.
Yeah, look, I mean, Brian said it. His game's not mature, and I fully agree. There's so many things that, there's things he does. There's things he's been doing since grade 8 that I'm like, wow, Division 1 athletes can't do this, and he's seeing this. The brain is so far ahead. The brain and body are so far ahead of the skill set for him right now. There's so much skill work that needs to be done for Scottie Barnes to take that next step to be like a Jason Tatum or a Kawhi Leonard. The game needs to be refined. There's so much rhythm and pacing. Like it's sometimes like
his rhythm isn't there. It's like he's trying to remember what he practiced.
Exactly.
With dribble moves.
Bingo. You just hit it because you're a coach. You get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
that's OG's problem. OG looks like he's trying to remember his dribble combinations.
It's not natural. Exactly. You have hit it on the head. Exactly. I remember, when I was younger, I was tall for my age when I was grade 6, grade 7, right? And I went to a basketball camp. And at that basketball camp, one of the things we were working on was post moves. So I thought I would be a big guard. I legitimately thought I was going to be 6'4". It did not happen. But I thought I would play big guard for the rest of my life. And I was like working out and I was trying to get stronger. And I worked on a whole bunch of post moves. And left hand, right hand, I'm under the basket. I'm like trying to work on post moves. And I'm like, this is a really weird thing to be developing as a guard, but I have my shot. Let me learn how to score at this level. And I got to tell you, every single time I would be in the gym by myself or against one defender, we're working on it, 8 for 10, 9 for 10. I was hitting them. But put it in a game, suddenly I have no idea how to get that shot off. It's completely different. All of that skill work that you do, it takes a long while to transfer. I guarantee you the stuff that Pascal Siakam's doing right now is stuff that he was working on in like 2019, 2020. It hasn't clicked for him until now, but now it looks pretty effortless. Now all those dribble combinations that he's been working out with Rico Hines forever, literally. I watched like an hour of him training like 3 years ago. All the stuff that he's doing right now is exactly what he's doing there. All that stuff in Tampa, bringing the ball up the court, learning to be a point guard. It didn't look great in Tampa. It looks great now. So that's what I'm saying. You gotta respect that eventually the work will show. And once the rhythm starts, and what I'm really happy about is if you're really being like very specific about it, I think Scottie played point today almost exclusively. He guarded Trae Young a lot. He was in the paint rebounding, but I think like for the vast majority, I mean, I'll have to track the possessions, but I'm pretty sure he was like the one initiating the offense the most tonight.
Yeah, I think
so. He played his natural position.
The teammates are trusting him more, and I just think it's a positive sign that he's having an off night mentally in terms of his processing speed wasn't what it normally is, but still an efficient 27 and 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he takes size.
I agree. All right, man. Thanks a lot for calling in. Really appreciate it as always. And yay, one more for the tank. Yeah.
Yep. And this helps. This helps the front office decision making. It's a win for us. If they were even on the fence, this is another win.
I got to be honest, they're not on the fence.
No, I know, but this is just like another nail. This is just another nail.
It's been nailed, man. I guarantee you, like the decision was made I want to be clear. I don't have inside information necessarily, but I remember making that ghost stream where I quickly just, I removed it sort of and I lifted it to unlisted. But something that I said on that was I received a particular email, which I'm
Yes.
not going to get into. And that email told me what I needed to know because this person knows me pretty well and they know the Raptors pretty well. And for me, that was like, okay, we're good. And I've pretty much been calm since then. 3-game win streak does not really scare me. They could have, I tell you right now, they could win like the next 4. It's not going to change much. The only thing that's going to change is where they are at the end of the season in relation to lottery balls. I am, of course, however, keenly aware that Rudy Gay was traded to initiate a tank and it kind of backfired. That could happen. That could happen again. You have a lot of talent on this team that may just shine as, a couple guys move out. So I'm open to that situation as well. But what I do not want is for us to make the playoffs and then for Fred VanVleet to hold us hostage at 4
In
years,
negotiations.
130.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty much firmly played himself out of that contract range, regardless of what he does the rest of the season. I think he's going to have to settle for probably a player option, opting into that player option and reinitiating this next year, which is a very dangerous proposition given his trend line, or he's probably going to have to do like a 3-year 65. I think 3-year 65, 3-year max 70. I don't think he's getting 4 or 5 years from anyone the way he's going. So yeah. Anyway, man. Thanks a lot.
They don't do trades. The reason they hold out to the deadline, I think, is because like they haggle till the very last second over like a second round pick.
I wouldn't do that. They're not in a position of strength right now. Everyone knows they have to deal with this guy. Everyone.
Yep. Just keep OG Precious and Siakam.
And also
Scottie.
like,
That's it.
Absolutely. And the final thing I'll say is, there's a lot of parity in the league. There are a lot of teams that could realistically or unrealistically convince themselves that they're still technically in it because they're 2 games out of the play-in, Raptors included, right? Raptors aren't that far away from the play-in contention, if you want to call it that. So problem is, as you approach the trade deadline, you may have certain teams that fall out of that desperate situation. Their future may clarify a little bit, right? Some of these teams that are currently 9th, 8th, 10th, 7th may create some separation, and teams that are overachieving right now in the 11, 12, 13 spots may fall back. Now suddenly, you might be against the wall because certain guys on those teams are now available, and now Fred VanVleet isn't the only point guard who's on the trade market. Now you have a competing offer. I think I would strike while the iron is hot. I would probably take a 1st-round pick and an expiring and a young and a somewhat, I don't want to say blue chip prospect. You're not getting a blue chip prospect. I think people holding out for Dyson Daniels are insane. But man, if you could get Dyson Daniels, wow, I would name a street after Masai. I would start a petition to name a street after Masai.
Daniels and Devontae Graham and just run.
Dude, I would throw in a 1st-round pick for that trade. Anyway, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you, Mo. Next up, we got MSJ, and then we got your goat. Okay, MSJ, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? It's good loss.
Great. It's a good loss. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. You could see it coming even after the 3-game win streak. You just knew Fred was going to go back to his old ways, and he did. And
some guys react very different when you're losing. Right.
Yeah. Well, but to get away from that, he does have to be traded. I don't think that fans, like diehard Fred VanVleet fans, are going to really miss him when he's gone. I really don't. I think that regular fans will look for wins more than particular player. And if we can deal him, maybe we have, who knows what happens after we deal him. It could be another. I know you like Bargnani, but when he left, we went on that 10-game win streak, and it was like gangbusters for a while, and people just forgot about him. It could be the same kind of thing, because I do believe that with Siakam, he's kind of like in no man's land now. He doesn't know what to do, what to think, how to feel about what's going on. His good friends getting, well, I don't know what's going on exactly with Fred, but he's not playing well. So if he is able to move, Pascal might be able to say, okay, well, that's over, and then kind of embrace the team that is around him and maybe lead it. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm looking forward to Fred leaving. I'm getting kind of like I can't watch the game so well anymore with him on the court. It's like inducing mental illness at the at this point. And I think he's going to be gone. But I do think that the Raptors should play Doughton, maybe sign him.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that you can see what's going to happen with Precious. He's coming back online now. He's looking pretty good. And I really think we're just in this weird limbo period where we have a player who's like, I saw your picture there with him and with a little emoji and stuff like that, looking like he's, I don't know, ready for a funeral or something like that. And it's like, it's time to go. And until he's gone, for whatever we can get for him, then we're just going to be stuck in this weird thing where the fans are like at each other. And it's just not happy in Raptors land.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a guy who has had aspirations of, the work that he's put in. He calls it sacrifice. I don't care. The minutes he's played, the lack of backup, the championship run, right? There is a sort of end of this story that sees him break all of Kyle Lowry's records and retire as the greatest Raptor of all time. There's that ending to the story that I think a lot of people had bought into as
Yeah.
this is how this story is going to go. He obviously achieved what I would say career success and or team success much earlier in his career than Kyle did, right? Kyle was bouncing around. He went from Memphis to Houston, all sorts of issues, right? And
Yeah, but
Kyle was a first rounder.
it's team sports, though. I mean, you could have a great player who blows out his knee, and that's the end of it. And you say to yourself, did you make millions of dollars? What's your life like now? You've got a championship ring. Like, you did really well. In Fred's case, it was kind of this strange. He reached the peak 11 months ago at the All-Star game. And then he kind of, I don't know, it just fell off a cliff, real kind of like in slow motion, but quickly. And it was like everybody could see it, but no one could believe it. And,
One day I'm going to make a
well.
documentary. Those who don't know, I'm a filmmaker. One day I'm going to make a documentary about how this guy became hyped to hell and actually look at those massive scoring outputs that he had. I'm not taking complete credit for, the way he played over that I want to say like 5 to 8 week stretch, like where he really put up huge numbers. He was shooting like unsustainably high percentages.
Yeah.
This happens with players. There are players who are hella streaky. Okay. There are guys who play 20 minutes off the bench. And if you look at their stats, there's like a 2 month stretch where they're shooting like 53% from three. I think Jeremy Grant had a entire stretch of the season this year so far where he was shooting like 47% from three, 47.7% from three. Now, for Jeremy Grant, right, who I don't think anyone would argue is an all-star necessarily or a franchise player, but a very good player, a very good, third, fourth option, fifth option on a team. For that guy, he plays with Dame Lillard, Anthony Simons. He's not getting to call his shots or whatever. But if that guy had his own team at this current time and it lined up with his hot streak, he might end up putting like 27 points, 28 points per game for like 2 month stretch until he fell back down to it always regresses to the mean. It's something that CJ McCollum said, like you don't completely shoot like dog shit for the entire season just because you start out kind of cold. You have 5 game stretches. Some people have like 2 month stretches where they're really good. And there's a combination of factors that go into that. Strength of opponent, like who's in, who's out of your lineup. I
It's
mean,
also
obviously
mindset, though. It's also mindset. Like,
it's confidence. So much of basketball
Yeah.
comes down to
Like
confidence.
but if you
Right.
think about Fred's mindset, it's bet on yourself, which is, I don't want to say that anymore. Like, I'm so tired of it, but it's bet on yourself. And he did, and it powered him. And it's like he reached the pinnacle, which was, I got to get to an all-star game. And he did it. And that's terrific for him. And after that, I think the pressure comes off, the focus is removed, the everything, and his body is like in like broken mode. So it's kind of like he's not recovered from that. If he will, maybe not here, maybe on another team. I don't wish him badly, but I really don't. I think he's a good player and everything like that. But I do think that his time here is over. And I'm really looking forward to him leaving so that the fan base can kind of like go, oh, okay. And then we can think about basketball again instead of this whole melodrama.
Somebody said recently, someone I trust a lot said recently, don't be surprised if he gets traded to a contender because most of the teams that would be competing for his services are a contender, and that he's what they need to push them over the edge to potentially be a championship team, and he ends up winning another championship this year. And I wonder, how this fan base will handle that inevitable, not, I don't want to say inevitable, but potential outcome. Because we may not end up in the playoffs. He may end up on a team that is going to get into the playoffs. And again, guys, there's levels to this. A guy who is a starting guard, who's a lead initiator, is going to have to be so damn good. His creation, everything, because the offense is going to run around him. But if you plug Fred VanVleet next to three players who are decidedly better than him, and he just gets to kind of float on the perimeter and play an off-ball role off of like great creators, and by great creators I do mean like a Nikola Jokic type, if he ends up getting traded to Denver, or LeBron, someone like that.
Yeah.
If he ends up in that situation where guys just get him clean looks and he can just be a gunner, and he can kind of go back to the role that he had in the championship run, I think he can still do that very well. He has a lot of positives as a player. I know I've been down on him, but I'm down on him in this role. As we've seen in the past, there are, like, I want to say 15 to 16 games in this season where he's really bought into that role, not as a bench player, but because he hasn't come off the bench in
No, I
years.
know what
But
you mean.
yeah, like that sort of fourth, fifth option, off
Yeah.
the ball, secondary creator, smart reads, etc. He's still very capable of doing that, and in a defense that doesn't require so much switching and can still hide him. There is a coach out there who's looking at this guy and saying, this guy could anchor my second unit for the next 3 years and make me very, very good, because he would easily be one of the best backup point guards in the league right
Yeah.
away. Right? So
Well, that would be good for him.
it would be
That's the way
great for him, and that
that's
is
the way I would look at it.
exactly where he needs to be, because right now going up against backups is the only thing that's going to be able. That and a serious rim protector is the only thing that's really going to make him look halfway competent on defense again, because he was
Pylon.
bad tonight
Oh,
on
yeah.
defense.
It was bad.
Him and Siakam. Siakam, I don't know how, like, I don't trust the media to necessarily call out issues when they come up, especially when those issues pertain to guys that they are very chummy with. But man, somebody please call this out before, because I feel like these guys sometimes they're like I feel like pissed off, because it's like, you're going to make me the bad guy, you're going to make me say it first, and then everyone's going to pile up on me and say, oh my god, you're hating Pascal Siakam, these are his box score numbers. I get all of that. Okay, he has outperformed my expectations offensively. Trust me, he has. It hasn't led to winning. You can make of that what you will. I obviously have. But his defense last year when he came back from the injury, this year when he's come back from the injury, even when he wasn't injured, you can say what you want, like, he's not going to be an all-league defender carrying this level of offensive load, but man, he is just such a glaringly obvious weak link in that starting lineup. And defensively, him and Fred, that entire...
But they're a duo, though. Like, this is the thing. Like I said before, I don't think the Pascal problem is a basketball problem. I think it's a kind of Fred's still here problem. And that's whatever. I mean, these things, I just want them to go away now.
Yeah.
Honestly.
What do you think of Malachi tonight? I can't believe we have gone this much into the show not talking about Malachi Flynn. I think he was good.
Yeah, he looked energized. I was on another stream, watching the game, and someone said, Malachi went up to Fred and said, it's my team now, buddy. And we were kind of laughing about that. But I do think that Malachi is a good guard, undersized, everything like that. But if given a chance and given some confidence, maybe because he can't shoot the ball. We know he can shoot the ball.
He has a lot more burst and creation than Fred.
Yeah, he's good at the pick and roll. He did a nice pocket pass, I think, to, can't remember who it was. He made a couple good passes. He looked competent, and he does look competent. But again, like, what would it be like if you got Fred VanVleet, walking around, I'm the all-star, who are you? Because sometimes, like, I've played on teams where, you get that rub from the better player. It's like, you're dog shit and I'm the best. And that makes it harder to play on the team. Who knows? I don't know. I just, like I said before, and I'll get off the line now. It's just that this has to change, because, like, it's getting to me now. It's like really getting to me. it's really inducing. Like, oh God, I'm gonna watch the game because I'm a fan, but like, and then it starts like how many shots has he taken? And
Right.
I know I've said I just want him to take 12, but maybe just like take 4 now and just play 12 minutes. It's just like there's this tension, and you can see it when I saw that picture that you posted. Like it's like, oh my God, like, okay, it's not me. It really is. It really is what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, like energy is a really serious thing, right?
Yeah.
I've said it many times, like being around certain people, it can sink a room, right?
Yeah.
And there's certain people that you need to put them in certain situations to be okay, but then you push them into a corner and then things change, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we can all agree that we have a person in our lives or we've known someone in the past that they can thrive 11 months of the year, but something happens in their life, something, maybe it's a trigger. And for Fred, I think, feeling threatened is a trigger. Feeling his position on the
Could
team is
be.
being questioned, maybe young guys not responding to his texts, unfollowing him on social,
Yeah.
Thad, kind of coming to his aid, him getting unfollowed too. That is a lot of drama just
Yeah,
for
it's
one
too much. It's
Instagram
too
channel, right?
ridiculous. It's
And
ridiculous. Like,
and look, like
honestly.
I side with the youth. And I will get into
Oh.
it at the end of this chat why I side so much with the youth and why you're always going to hear me. Well, I don't want to say always hear me side with the youth, but why I have a tendency to gravitate towards siding with, I don't want to say the little guy, but in a weird way, the little guy. Not, so yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot, Miss J.
All
I
right.
really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I really
No
hope
worries.
that for your mental health sake that we get a,
Don't worry about it too much.
I feel bad because we're laughing off this mental health issue, but seriously, man, like mental health and sports is related. I know that through the dark ages of the Raptors, which is
Yeah.
basically 2005 through 2012, that entire
Yeah.
period, even though we made the playoffs a couple times and there were blips of hope, I felt it around my friends.
No,
I would
same
feel
with.
it.
I remember it. I remember
Basketball
it.
just
And
wasn't exciting.
yeah, I joke with a lot of friends that I've been watching ball with for years about those years and how they're like, oh, the gloomy years and stuff like that. But I will just say, with the mental health thing, I don't want to talk that too much, but
Mhm.
like, this is the NBA these guys are playing in. Like, these are the best basketball players on the planet. And if you don't have that edge, that mental edge when you shoot the ball,
Yeah.
to say this is going to go in, it's not going to go in. And this is, I think, where Fred is. He just doesn't have that mental edge, and the other players know it. Like, he was being hunted tonight, and they were just like, "I'm just going to go right by you
gotta be
because
tough. That's gotta
you're
be
not into it."
That's got to
And
be
they
really
know it.
tough for your psychology, especially
Well, I wouldn't
because
worry about it too much because he gets paid millions of dollars and we don't. And it's just like, buddy,
I mean
like,
he's still a human being,
yeah,
right? Like
I
I'm
get that,
always
but
reminded of that. Like every single time, I end up like really upset with him. That he is still a human being. That he still has a family. He has kids, right? They're reading all of this stuff. Okay, that's
there's a lot of other people on the planet that you should worry a lot more about, man.
I worry
I
about
don't want to get it
everybody.
too much, but these guys are NBA players. That's their job. That's just the way it is. And I have some sympathy for it, but I'm just trying to say that it's not about sympathy. It's just that if you are going to hit those shots in the NBA at the speed of that game, you're going to have to like be on it, like right on the edge of your best, or you're not going to be able to compete. And it's unfortunate he has to go somewhere else and pick it up somewhere else. That's all. Not a bad guy. No, I don't dislike him or anything like that. It's just not working here.
I'll agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
All
agree
right.
with
Well,
that.
have a good night.
Good night, and again, I hope you feel a lot better.
Oh no, I feel fine. I'm just like it really is. I'm saying it in jest. Like it, when I'm watching the game, I feel like the Fred VanVleet thing taking over my mind in a bad way. That's all. It's not a big deal. It's just not. I'm not watching the games anymore. It's just it's a little bit too much. Anyway,
Do
I'll
you
talk.
think
Yeah.
this channel has had a little bit to do with that though?
No, I think
All the
actually.
low light films,
No,
all
no,
of that.
no,
I do
no.
wonder if sometimes I have to remind myself I am a Raptor fan. There are a lot of people out there who accuse me of not being a Raptor fan. I think that's
Yeah,
insane.
well,
For me to devote this much time to a team that I don't like, you'd have to be insane to do that. But sometimes, just talking with Brian, and I think that was a big catalyst for this,
That was
right? When
cool.
he
That was really
said,
cool.
"Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah.
it," but that thing that he said about at the end of the day, we're all on the Raptors. We should all be rooting for the Raptors.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get his sentiment on that. I really do. And I understand that sometimes, maybe I'm so opposed to how a player is playing that I become tunnel vision about it. I'm like, they have to be off this team for this team to be good. And it's like, in a
It's
weird way,
called,
you are supporting the team by
but it's
not.
called Bet on the Raptors. It's called Bet on the Raptors.
Yeah, that's a
Not
fair point. Yeah.
not bet
Anyways, I
on
mean, it's
yourself.
good to question your decisions once in a while.
And
Like
the other thing about it, the other thing about what you're doing, I think, for the fan base,
Mhm.
is that if I were to read the Toronto Star every day, right? If
Don't
I
do
were
that.
to, no,
Don't
I
do that.
don't. But like, I'm just saying that is not written for a hardcore basketball mind. It's just not. It's written for somebody who, hey, how are the Raptors doing, right?
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
that's it. What you're doing, in my mind, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't try and set yourself up as against, the Toronto Star or something like that. I would just move past it, and I'd be like, I am doing my own thing for the fan base, and it'll get bigger and bigger, Rob. That's
Well,
all.
I just hope I get better. I don't want to be, always like against something. Like it would be really nice to root for a team where I'm not against something and I'm just pro patience, right?
Well, hopefully,
Like if I was
after
if
a trade,
like
if
yeah,
you're still against something after a trade, I'll start to wonder myself. But right now, there is something to be said about like being ready for a change. That's all.
I'm with you. Anyway,
Okay.
thanks a lot, MSJ.
Yeah. And
Appreciate it as always. We're gonna take one more call. We will take more of your calls later. If you would like to call in, please do call in. But we are going to get to some post game stuff. We're gonna listen into Scottie Barnes and we're gonna listen into Nick Nurse. So, but first we have your goat. Your goat. How you doing?
What's good, man?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Kind of tired right now, but are you happy with the loss?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
am. I don't.
You're
I know
thinking.
out of context, someone might hear that and be like, "See, I knew he wasn't a Raptor fan." No, like I don't want meaningless wins to pile up. I obviously need this. And again, you can beat any team. Any team can beat any team on any given night and it not mean anything. I just think that it's really, really important for us to clarify some sort of vision going forward. Now, I don't care if this team ends up in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. Just to me, I don't want to end up just enough out of. I don't want to be in no man's land. Basically, that's sort of a short way of saying it.
So you don't want to be the Pistons in the last 10 years? Okay, I feel you.
The
So
Pistons have tanked aggressively. You got a top 5 pick last year. You got a top 5. You
the
got the
last 10
first
years,
overall pick the last.
yeah.
In Cade. You just unfortunately, I think, screwed that one up. I think I honestly, if I was running the Pistons at that point, I think there would be a very, very good case to go for Evan Mobley personally, but
Yeah.
or Scottie.
Yeah, I was just talking about like when we had Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, and we were in 8th place. All
And
those times.
yes, like I think the beginning of the end was the Josh Jackson, Ben Gordon, Charlie Villanueva period
Oh,
of
don't
Pistons
remind me of
basketball.
those guys. Oh, they're
Yes. So,
horrible.
anyways, I appreciate you calling in to make us feel better about being Raptor fans by expressing your
Yeah.
miseries as a Piston fan. So tell me, just in case we're in for a losing season, how do you deal with having no hope for your team? Because right now, I mean, let's be honest, the Pistons might as
Yeah.
well be mathematically eliminated.
Yeah.
So what are you looking? What do you think when you watch the games? Are you just thinking like, hey, is Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, are they looking good? What might be get for Bogdanovic? Is Beef Stew gonna punch somebody else? Like what is
When
the reason to
when
watch
when I
games right now?
Well, the reason to watch games, well, number one, because I love this team and I will always support this team no matter what.
Good for
Even
you.
if we're the worst team ever, we don't win anything in the next 20 years, I'm still
S-
going to try
So
my
you're
best
saying
to
that you
watch.
would have supported like the 2012, 2013 Bobcats if you lived in North Carolina for sure, right?
Yeah,
That's 7-win
that's the
team.
thing.
Okay,
But
cool.
if so, the mindset whenever I watch a game is okay. You know what? Let's see how these young players that we put a lot of faith into perform, such as Jaden Ivey for us, and maybe for you guys, Scottie Barnes. I know you're a huge Scottie Barnes fan, and I
Yes.
imagine for you
What
every
gave it
night.
away?
every Raptors game, you're like, you know what? I want to see how Scottie Barnes performs tonight. If he improves on this, if he does well on this, that's what I look at with with the Pistons, with Jaden Ivey. Who else? Killian Hayes. Even though he's inconsistent, he's getting better. So when I look at these games, even though we're not the best team, even though we're a bad team, I want
You're
to
the
see
worst
how.
team in the NBA. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, we're
putting
the
it straight. Sorry, I'm not trying to
maybe
roast
the
the Pistons
Rockets.
fan base, but
Yeah.
like it's pretty dire. Look, I've watched a lot of Piston games, partly
Mhm.
because I'm very curious about how this Cade Scottie take is going to work out. Because I'm dying on my hill, right? I made a video that Scottie was better than Cade, and I got a lot of hate for it. Like I think
Yeah.
that video has like 680 and 700 comments, and they're basically all telling me to kill myself. However,
Really.
I mean, no, but they're pretty bad. Like I pissed off the state of Michigan pretty hard there. So I decided to watch a lot, and I'm curious about how Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren are going to perform, and I agree with those two picks. I didn't agree with the Killian Hayes pick. I definitely don't agree with the Cade pick. I think Dwayne Casey's probably the wrong coach, but
True.
time
True.
will tell. How that no name saying Scottie is better than Cade. I agree with you, man. Like
I mean,
um
listen. In my personal opinion, I'm a Pistons fan, so I think Cade. I like Cade more. I think Cade's better. I just feel like in the long run, I feel like Scotty has much more to him in the long run, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially
Cade's game is really mature, like
I know.
really mature. I've been watching Cade since he was 17. His game is so refined. He was
Yeah.
pulling off moves. Like he just looks so old. No, I don't mean old like he's got
Yeah.
wrinkles and shit. Like
Yeah.
I mean like his game was so far ahead in college, and he was still not dominant. That is what
Mhm.
that's what threw me off, because
Yeah.
at Oklahoma State, like at Oklahoma, him like his ball skills, his package, his just look at him play, man. He plays like a superstar. If you just watched him in an empty gym against a bum, he looks like a superstar. But it doesn't always convert. If you watch him in an isolated play, I remember when the Pistons faced the Raptors last year, there was this one play that he had against OG Anunoby. Do you remember it? Where he took OG off the drive and scored on him? And you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a rookie going up against an all league defender, in my opinion, and just schooling him. That's amazing. He can do
I
that
know.
every now
Yeah.
and again. But there's so much more that makes an NBA player great, right? So I
Yeah.
think like, there are guys who are just really advanced for their age for whatever reason, Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball. These guys were really advanced for their age. Their ball skills are leaps and bounds. When you pick up the game really early, you have a lot of advanced training in an early stage, you get ahead of people. Do you stay ahead of people? That comes down to, genetics. It comes down to growth. That comes down
Yeah.
to surrounding yourself with the right people, ending up in the right situation. Some guys peak at 23, man. Some guys peak at 29. Some guys peak at 31. Happens for everyone differently. But, I wish you well as a Pistons fan. I'm rooting for you
I,
guys as well. I want everyone to
wish
do
you
well.
guys well too, man. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I've always liked the Raptors. And I wish you guys well. Honestly, I do feel like you guys are in a tough position because I've been in that position too for a long time. Which is, I'm not saying. I mean, Raptors last season were good, but in this season, in terms of we are in 11th place. We could make the playoffs, or we could just tank, or do this and that. I mean, the Pistons
Were you
are
pro tank? Were you pro tank in those situations? No,
for
you were always,
Pistons.
yeah.
Maybe when we had Blake Griffin, yes. When it was Andre Drummond, KCP, and all those guys, no, I like that squad. But when we traded for Blake Griffin and had all that caps, I know I wanted to tank immediately. But
Hmm.
the thing is like the Raptors, they normally pick good in the draft. The Pistons, they choose Luke Kennard over like Donovan Mitchell and players like that. So I'm not. I'm not really too optimistic with the draft, but now it is getting better in my opinion.
Gotcha. Appreciate you calling in, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you for having me on. Have a great night.
Have a good one. Thank you. Alrighty, let's get to some Nick Nurse, Scottie Barnes post game. Also, if you watch Scottie really closely, he's talking a little bit different right now. I don't know if people catch it, but there's a lot less. not sureness, and there's a lot more directness with the media. Maybe he's just,
What have you learned
Yeah.
about this team over the past 6 home games?
What have I learned about the team? I feel like I already know everything about the team. We're a hard-working group, come hard to work every day. We fight. I know everything. I feel like I know everything about the group. I don't know how to answer that question.
You had, it was a big 6-game stretch. I mean, at home, looking to rebound from some tough times. You went 3-3. Did you feel like you made progress in this stretch, or are you still kind of where you were?
I don't know. Start off slow a couple of the games, which allowed teams to get like a stretch on us, I would say. A good lead, and we just always fight our way back to try to crawl back into the game. We had a good 3 games where we played really solid. I don't know. We're getting there, I guess.
What were Trey and DeJounte doing that made it so difficult to contain?
They just was doing a lot of slip-out ball screens, being able to drive those gaps, holding people off on their back, being able to get deep in the paint, either for the little floaters or DeJounte was getting to the little mid-range shot, or they would just hit the roll. They were just getting options when they got into the deep paint. That was just finding them ways to be able to score the ball. I felt like we just should have guarded the ball better. I feel like that would have helped us.
You mentioned the defense. With the offense getting off to a slow start and then some turnovers as well, how tough is it to slow a team like that down when they do kind of get out and running like they do?
I feel like that's what we've been working on in practice every single day, just getting back in transition. It's been a primary focus. Charlotte, they run out in transition. Of course, this team run out in transition, so Pacers run out in transition. That's a thing that we've been just working on a lot, that we just been trying to get better at. But this team, of course, they're really good at it. So we just got to get back in transition, build a wall, and just try to guard the ball, stop it, keep it in front of us.
all right. Next up, we got Nick Nurse.
Defenses, but you could not get those guards stopped of theirs, and that caused a lot of breakdown for you?
Yeah, they got to some spots, and I thought especially, Trey's going to do, a little bit of everything, as we all know, but I thought Murray was the one who really kind of, got in there and just kept consistently making those kind of short turnaround jump shots there for a stretch when we were trying to, when with stretches we were doing a pretty good job. Other guys, but also I didn't think, we didn't sit down and guard some of their other guys very well when it did go off to them too. I know there's not a lot of big numbers there, but there's double figures for all of them, and when those guys needed to make a play, they were making hard drives into the paint, and we weren't keeping them out of there enough. Just pretty much too much paint touches allowed by us for the most of the night.
When you experimented in the fourth quarter with that very big lineup of Gary or Fred on the court, what was your goal? Just to scramble the game a little bit? Or?
Well, I just was kind of looking for who I thought was having the best nights of the guys, and obviously Precious was playing pretty good, Chris was playing pretty good, Scottie was playing pretty good. That was kind of my top 5 for the night left, and I figured it'd give us maybe a better chance to we weren't really guarding them very well with any of the other lineups, and it wasn't bad. I thought we made a nice run, had a couple chances there with some other things to even cut it down further and get right back in the game, but I thought we missed a couple critical, plays offensively that probably could have pulled it a little closer. Yeah.
It seemed like you guys had more live ball turnovers than usual, especially in the first half? I know you talk a lot about transition defense. How much tougher does it make on the transition defense?
Well, we didn't get off to a very good defensive start in general, but we didn't score at all, right, to start the game again. And I don't think, I don't think they were the greatest shots in the world, but I also don't think they were awful. They were pretty good shots. You got to make some of those, to start the game. So live ball turnovers or just live ball rebounds, right, are next in line as hardest to defend, right? And we just put ourselves in a constant defensive transition battle because our offense the ball wasn't going through the basket.
With Fred and Gary struggling like that, is that a little bit their defense carrying into their offense, or just an off night for those guys, or were they something the Hawks were doing to try and take them out?
Well, first of all, they were doing a lot of switching. Right, so there wasn't a ton of room to play in space. They were trying to sit down and keep the ball in front with those two guys, and they switched a lot of bigger guys on them. I don't know. I thought Gary took some tough shots early, like really tough. Freddie had a couple of step backs that were he made his one and only one on one of those, and then he tried another one. But other than that, I think he had some decent chances there. So just probably an off night, really.
Nick, what have you learned about your team over the 6-game homestand?
Well, that we're got a long way to go with some consistency, right? I think that. I would have liked to have said we're making some progress with just being ready to go energy-wise and connectivity-wise and all that stuff. And then tonight it didn't look like we had very good energy to start the game, right? So we've got to find a measure of consistency with just moving, getting back, cutting more, all the things that energy provides, getting on the glass, a few more deflections. Again, one of those. We got to finish possessions because again there was a 4 or 5 possessions where we deflected the ball and they end up with something great. When we deflect the ball, we got to figure out a way to come up with it, or we make them throw a really errant pass and somehow it still ends up in their hand and they're shooting one more pass and they're shooting a wide open 3. I didn't think we rotated late in possessions very well. I didn't think once we saw where the ball was going, we sprinted out to get to some shooters. Even in transition, there was guys that were shooting, way too uncontested for our liking.
Thanks very much. Last question, please.
Yep. The bigger lineup means that a lot of guys are guarded down towards the end there. What did you
Pardon me?
The bigger lineup at the end means guys are guarded down. What did you make of their ability to switch out and stop the play?
Yeah, it was better. I thought it was good. I thought it was better than what we'd seen most of the night. The bigger guys were doing better at keeping the ball in front and challenging. And I thought the defense was probably good enough in the fourth, and that was mostly those guys. Just needed to score a little more. We got it to the point of the front of the rim many times and came away empty. Right? I thought we had some great looks at 3, came away empty. Ran a couple sets where 3s were there and turned them down. Right? Just the rhythm wasn't great on offense during that stretch, but I thought the defense was.
Okay, and now we are going to hear from Nate McMillan, and then we'll respond to some of the Twitter stuff that is being put out there. If anyone wants to call in for 1 or 2 final calls, we're going to try to keep this one under 2 hours. Every single time I say that, we go 4 hours, but it's not going to go 4 hours today, guys. Let's get this up.
Us having to control the tempo tonight, and I thought we did a good job of that, not allowing them to get off to a good quick start. It was important that the first and the third quarter we got off to a good start and not allow them to establish the tempo they like to play at and get their crowd into the game. DJ and Trey did a really good job of controlling the tempo. I thought our guys did a good job of rebounding the basketball tonight, and all of those were big keys.
Just with a win like this, like what does this do for a team to have back-to-back road wins on back-to-back nights now heading home?
Well, this is probably our best road trip. I know it's only 2 games, but to go into Indiana and win there, and then, always Toronto is always a tough place to play on a back-to-back, and win here with Toronto being a game behind us. We talked about the importance of the tiebreaker in this game, and our guys came out ready to play, and they played a solid 48 minutes.
I think it's the first time you guys have won here since December of 2016, which is crazy. I know this building, it's crazy, right? But what did you like? I know you said you wanted to see a lot of patience on the offensive side too, just DeJounte and Trey making the right reads, especially against their defense constantly switching away.
Yeah, well, they changed up their defense, and they're athletic, they're big, and physical. And I thought, again, our guys did a good job of controlling the tempo. When we had the break, we tried to be aggressive and attack the rim. When we didn't have anything, we were patient. We kept our spacing, and we was able to continue to be aggressive in the half-court offense. So, we can't settle. We talk about that a lot, not settling, attacking the basket. And I think really in the last 2 games, I like the way our guys are attacking the basket and not settling on the perimeter.
Especially with their length too, holding a guy like Siakam to only 15 points. I think it was only 4 points in the second half before he fouled out. Like, what did you like about how your team defended them as a whole, and then specifically Siakam?
Well, the key every night is to keep the ball in front of you and, try to defend the paint. It first starts with transition, but in the half court, keep the ball in front of you. Onyeka started out on him guarding, but we were switching, and, whoever was in our red defense, we challenged all of our guys to keep the ball in front and not allow them to, get to the rim or get to the free throw line. We was fouling in that first half, but I thought we did a better job the second half.
For AJ and Jalen to kind of come in and help trying to keep the bench unit together, just what does that say about their continued growth through the season?
Well, our young guys are getting a lot of good experience with all the injuries we've had. We've been forced to play them, and nights like tonight, they've had to step in and play some important minutes. They continue to improve and show some growth. They're going to make some mistakes, but for the most part, they've done a pretty solid job for us. Jalen and AJ, tonight Aaron had to step in and play without Bogey, so those guys got a few more minutes, and Onyeka again continues to show growth, playing at that 5 position.
For AJ, I know he still has some of those rookie minutes or rookie moments on the defensive end, but he looked really solid tonight. Especially there was that moment where Gomez or not Gomez tried to pump fake him and he didn't fall for him. Just what is he continuing to do on that end of the floor?
Well, the time on the floor is going to help him. And, you're going to see different players, different opponents, and you'll learn tendencies, as he continues to play. Offensively, we certainly needed the lift that he gave us on the offensive end of the floor. Without Bogey being out there, they were playing a lot of zone. He made some plays to score the ball, which was really important for us, him coming off the bench.
All right. So link is in the description, guys, for any final call-ins. We will be happy to discuss that. I know that this channel has had a point that there are certain people in this media who refuse to call out Fred VanVleet. Credit where credit is due. We're going to look at some of those tweets today. This is Eric Corrine, who gave Fred VanVleet a C minus while giving Scottie Barnes a D plus. No shade to Eric Corrine. Eric Kareen, you are goated as far as this channel goes. Love your writing, and I'm just glad to see you calling it as you see it, because I know that you see it, so I'm glad to see you calling it, sir. And Josh Lewenberg, many people have called him Fred VanVleet's Chihuahua. At times, I have not. However, I have called him out for, I think, unfairly being critical of others on this roster, but not necessarily Fred VanVleet. And to him, I say, congratulations to you, also echoing the sentiments of someone who actually knows what he's talking about. Doug Smith. Oh, Dougie. I can't believe I'm going to see something positive about you, but thanks for calling what we're all seeing. Thank you for that. Will Lou, another what I would consider Fred VanVleet apologist, someone who has treated Fred VanVleet's slump with kid gloves, right? Just sort of ignoring reality, almost like it's like, when your dad is like the strong guy and then your dad has a back injury and then you keep convincing yourself that he's still the strong guy that he always was. There's a lot of hero worship going on with some members in this media and Fred VanVleet, and I think that they all look up to him because of his story, his backstory, and how hard he works. And when you get too close to a guy like this, like you can start to there's a halo effect that goes on with it, but I'm glad to see a little bit of that halo effect disintegrating. I will offer more comments on that. And then, there we go. Josh Lewenberg, right? Making a point to maintain that, because like the media has been killing the bench pretty much all year, right? They've been saying like Raptors don't have a bench, Raptors don't have this. Well, now you're seeing the bench actually play minutes, having somewhat of a consistency in terms of the lineups that are being out there. We have some predictable idea game to game who's going to come in and who's going to play together. And whether or not, it's OG or Scottie or Pascal or Gary or Fred with that bench unit, there seems to be like a 4-man unit that plays with the starters. That is how you develop any sort of chemistry with a second unit. And we are seeing that the second unit is what we thought they were, which is an above average second unit in the NBA. I was getting really frustrated seeing these guys getting tossed, every single year to the Wolves. So yes, there's that. And sorry, let's get to some of these comments here. Okay, one more thing. We're going to look at the standings because I think this is important right now for all of the pro tank people. So the Raptors, all right, 19 and 24. They're 2 and 8 against their division, which is really not going to help them at all. 4 and 6 over the last 10. If you look above them, there is not a single team that is worse than 4 and 6 over the last 10. So not only are they absolutely outside right now looking in, they have it's an identical record with the Chicago Bulls. Could argue that both teams are sort of trending in the wrong direction, but the Bulls just one game better over the last 10. The Raptors officially, in terms of that target team, they have the inverse record. The New York Knicks that they beat at Madison Square Garden behind that huge performance from Pascal Siakam, the same team that came into Toronto and then, beat them. That's the team you have to catch, right? The Raptors have maintained play-in for what, right? You don't want to be in the play-in. So that is the team that you have to catch. And that gap is now 5 games, right? It's a complete inverse, which means they have to lose their next 5. You have to win your next 5 for that gap to be, for you both to be 24 and 24. But then you have the Miami Heat. They're 7 and 3 over the last 10. So they're trending in the positive direction for a team that is just 4 games above 500. They've been comfortably over 500 over the last 10 games. The Atlanta Hawks, who you just lost to, they just finished out a very rough part of their schedule, right? They just finished this game sort of wraps up 7 games in 7 different cities. So, you'd be surprised just how quickly one of these teams ahead of you can, put together an 8-game winning streak and just leave you in the dust. Parity can be somewhat misleading in the NBA sometimes, but I do want to say that for the record, I think the Raptors do need to pull the plug on this season. So what does this next version of the Raptors potentially look like? The youth movement. Who do I like? If anyone wants to come on and talk, about what they see with Christian Koloko, Precious Achiuwa, which pieces they want to trade out. We have about 10 minutes to have one conversation. If you want to call in, link is in the description. But I will tell you what I sort of see in this young core. So obviously, very big fan of Scottie Barnes, and I hope he's a Raptor for the rest of his career. Building around him, I think, would be a really smooth and solid idea. OG Anunoby, still a young prospect. He's 25 years old. I think the two-way potential he has flashed. There are moments, this season where he has definitively been your best player, especially when you factor in defensive impact. The gap between him and Siakam defensively is pretty big. And the offensive gap, I think, is also pretty big in Pascal's favor, but I think, given an extra 3 years, could he develop a little bit more? They have very different skills offensively. I think OG is the better shooter. I think OG is a little bit more comfortable with an off-ball role, so I think you can grow him into a second, third option a little bit more easily than you could, say, a Siakam. They will both command a max contract on their next deal, the maximum amount allowed. Someone will pay it. These are two highly well-regarded and sought-after players in the NBA, so I think that's where I stand on OG. I wouldn't trade him. I agree with Brian in the last chat. He said you'd have to get the Donovan Mitchell package for him. I tend to agree with that. I think this is a guy that, like, why would you want to trade him, right? Phoenix Play says OG's balance is poo-poo. Yeah, I agree, and I hope that is something that the Raptors and or his trainers can work on in the offseason, because really that's the one thing holding him back from being a consistent 22 to 23 point per game scorer with like elite defense. And I don't think that elite defense is going anywhere for the next 4 or 5 years. So, I think that's it's a player that I would like to keep. Next up, there's some question marks, but some question marks with some very exciting upside in Precious Achiuwa and Christian Koloko. What Christian Koloko has shown in his best games, and I think that a good way to evaluate young players is to cherry pick a little bit. Consistency is always going to be an issue when you're leveling up from college to the NBA, playing 82 games, the grind of the NBA season, all the traveling. It's intense. There's nothing like this in the world in terms of basketball, the grind that is the NBA season. So I think that for a rookie adjusting who picked up the game late, I think Christian Koloko has flashed so much potential. He did an interview with Amit Mann where they jokingly called him a future defensive player of the year. Honestly, that's not far-fetched. There's a lot of stuff that he's doing that has excited me about a lot of young prospects in the past. To those of you who have followed me in, other channels and in other, areas, that I was a very big fan of Serge Ibaka as a prospect. I see a lot of that in Christian Koloko, a lot. Except there's a vision to his game that was never really there in Serge's game. With Serge, what I got excited about when I saw him as a prospect was just the bounciness, the fluidity, the shot blocking, just the immense physical potential and tools that he had, and the motor. With Christian Koloko, there's more. It doesn't look that way right now, but Serge just came into the league a little bit more physically developed than Koloko. I think he needs to put on some weight in the offseason, but that passing potential that he's flashed in the short roll, I just keep talking about it, shooting potential, the work ethic, everything we've heard about him, and the way that he grinds. I think you have a very special player here. I don't mean to big him up or hype him up any more than I already have, but he's a player that I wouldn't trade for like an unprotected first right now. I feel that strongly about him. I mean, it kind of depends on which team's unprotected first. Obviously, there's a bevy of prospects in the next draft that I think are better, but I think relative to where he was picked, relative to what he's being paid over the next 3 years, it's a steal and a half if there ever was one. Precious Achiuwa, kind of the inverse, right? A lot of the physical tools that Koloko doesn't have in terms of refined strength for a young player, but just a lot of the mental stuff needs to catch up. Will it ever catch up? How many prospects have I seen at 21, 22 where I'm like, oh man, if they can ever just figure out how to play basketball, they'll be so good. And then, flash forward to their career, they're playing for the Huangdong Tigers or something in China, like when they're 31, and you're like, shit, they never figured it out. It's not something that everyone figures out. The game within the game, setting up your teammates, figuring out the rhythm, the ebbs and flows of an NBA offense, consistency. But physical potential, athletic fluidity, hard work, a track record of, working hard on his game, an expanded focus, a lot of confidence, a lot of, machismo to his game. I think he's, and defensive upside up the wazoo, right? I can't believe I just used that term, up the wazoo, like I'm 700 years old with that comment there. Probably getting a lot of laughs from the 50 something crowd. But I think he's someone that you could definitely see as part of a bench unit going forward. And maybe if he really, really, puts it together mentally, he could be a fifth option type starter. I think he just necessarily needs to, I think he definitely needs to figure out how to pick and choose his places on offense. Erica says, hey, I use that saying. Well, okay. Apparently it is a hit with a 20 something crowd as well. But, I think, that's a pretty old time saying. Then we have a glut of guards, right? We have Delano Banton, Jeff Doughton Jr., and Malachi Flynn. Malachi Flynn, to me, is probably the last of these three that I see massive upside with, right? I like him, as a third string guard on a good team, right? I do. As a second string guard, I think consistency issues, size, age, right? I think he's 23, 24 right now. So he's not necessarily a spring chicken anymore. That sounds so weird to say, that someone who's 24 or 23 isn't necessarily young, but relative to where his game is and how it's expanded over the last 3 years, I think the Raptors would probably agree that it hasn't quite grown. So, if you move off of Fred, is this a free half season tryout for Malachi Flynn to, see what he can do without him? Is this a type of audition that could see him lead the next, vision of the Raptors? I don't think so. I really don't. And I think that the Raptors are committed to going bigger. I think they have a point guard. They're not talking about him necessarily in Scottie Barnes. Occasionally playing him at small forward, shooting guard, power forward, starting him at power forward tonight, talking about him as a center. But I think he's a point guard, and I think he needs to really learn that position at the NBA level. And you really can't do that with Fred VanVleet playing so many minutes. Jeff Doughton, no doubt. No pun intended, but I have no doubt in Jeff Doughton. I think he is a guy who contributes to a winning team. Maybe as a third stringer, maybe as a second stringer, probably not as a starter, but I think he's a valuable piece, a fourth or fifth option who has sort of already gotten over himself, which is a very, very positive and rare thing for a young player. He is 24 or 25 years old as well. I think he's young enough to grow with this next, wave of basketball, whatever this will be. He is on a 2-way contract. I would like to see them convert that contract whenever possible. And then we have Delano Banton, the big mystery, right? Hasn't played in a while, right? Not sure why, though, right? The Raptors have been searching for answers, and Delano Banton has been much better this year. The shot has looked better. The playmaking has looked better. Is this a guy? He thrives in transition. He's one of the rare big guards, right? He's okay defensively. Can definitely do a breakdown on him. There's a couple of videos that I've made that just never came out. There's technically 3 videos just sitting there that haven't come out. The KD doc, which I'm just not sure what to do with right now. Like the overwhelming tone of that video is that he needs to get traded, and I guess the Brooklyn Nets going on this huge run has sort of put a kibosh into that. Then there is an entire video about how much better the bench is than Nick Nurse is giving it credit for, but all the stats used in that video unfortunately are about a month old now. So I'm like, oh man, I just put in all that work for nothing, all the graphics, and just never released it. And it's just like a video that just never got released, and it just sucks. And then the third is basically a video of me rambling about Fred VanVleet set to a visual of a car slowly swerving and falling off a cliff. I thought it was very artsy. I thought it was pretty cool, but now it just feels like I'm piling on a guy who's probably on his way out. So that probably doesn't feel very fair either. This is the time that I wish I had a Patreon account, to be honest, to release these types of videos. Need to get on that Patreon. In terms of the other young players on this team, who have I not talked about? Help me out, guys. Help me out, chat. Who have I not talked about? I had a lot of hope for Justin Champagnie. He is not on the team anymore. David Johnson, may never see another NBA minute again for the rest of his life. But then there is that very valuable, 2023 draft pick. And, if the season continues to fall off the rails, I've been teasing it for a while. We'll definitely do draft breakdowns. Gary, yeah, look, geez, right? Like, I think I've liked him a lot. I really have. And Ron Harper Jr., I mean, we'll get into him as well. Gary's shot making is a pretty elite skill set, right? He's streaky as hell. We've seen that over the last few games, right? He hasn't really been great the last few games. Put up some really wild ones close to the rim today. But I see the evolution. I see the growth in his game. There were a couple passes he made this game that he just hasn't tried in previous years. I watched this guy in Portland. I watched him at Duke. Just not a passer. He's evolving. He's growing. Seems to have really good chemistry with Scottie. Seems to have a good vibe with OG and Precious. It seems like this young core could do something pretty awesome if given a chance. And I don't mean do something awesome like be a playoff team or go on, the type of run that the North Raptors did. They don't have anyone as good as Kyle Lowry to initiate that type of thing, including Pascal Siakam. Just, okay. Like Siakam, Lowry, 2013. Okay, it's close, but in terms of impact on winning, I think Lowry is on a different tier, even though his box score numbers may not be as hypey. But he's a clutch client, man. You got to understand this. This is an agency that deserves a video unto their own. I mean, they're not going to sit there and allow you to tank the value of one of their clients and you're just not going to hear about it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me in the chat, Nick Nurse is also a clutch client, if I'm not mistaken. Is that true? I think he is now. And OG is also a clutch client now. I think his agent went over to Clutch. So if that has changed at some point, or if I'm wrong, please let me know. But I think that's, last I remember, that is true. He could be looking to move on. He could have already told them he wants, Oak Tree saying Gary wants the bag, he's out. I mean, what's the bag, right? What is the bag? He's making about 18, 19, 20-ish right now. I mean, what is the bag? Is the bag 32 million, 35 million? Okay, well then, you probably need to move on from this guy. But is the bag 25? Because I got to be honest, with the next CBA, and to anyone who's curious about it, we'll probably do a CBA episode at some point. We'll probably do a young picks, prospects episode. There's going to be a lot of content on this channel if this goes the other way. Don't worry. I've watched a lot of tanking teams. I know how to handle a tank in terms of content. But if you look at the next CBA, 25 million is not going to look like a lot for a player on the upswing. And I think that could be also the mindset of a team that may be looking to trade for him right now. So he may just have SGE. 25 is too much. Okay. Let me know in the chat. I want to understand this community a little bit better. And this is not disrespect, but I want to understand if you can be self-reflective. Can you give me okay, let's put it this way. Can you rate your grade on mathematics from A+ all the way to F in terms of how strong you are with numbers? I'm just curious. I'm curious to see if there are some like very gifted numbers minds, or if there are just a lot of people who maybe numbers just weren't their strong suit. And I just want to understand that so I know who I'm talking to, or I want to understand it before I start bringing up like advanced mathematics concepts and how much I need to explain. So C+, we got Sean, we got a C+. All right. Just be honest. Like, it doesn't matter. Brad Moore's A, SGE, A, okay. C-, B, A+. Graves, good job, man. I wish I knew you when I ran a math tutoring company. A, B-, B+, B-, B-, C, A+. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So I have an idea that this is, at least a group that is, let's say 85th percentile, 80th percentile mathematically. Okay, that's a good group. That's great. I mean, I had no doubt. I believe this community is smarter than the average bear, and I just wanted to understand if that intelligence extended into math. So inflation is a real thing. Okay, stats inflation is a thing, cap inflation is a thing. So let's talk about it. There was a period of time in NBA history where, you know, $7-8 million contract was a really big deal, for certain players, right? And it was very rare to see any player making over 20 to 25 million. Typically, if you had that type of player, usually they were a franchise player. So whenever inflation goes up, right, in any walk of life, whether it be how much you pay for groceries, and if you're in Toronto, you're definitely feeling the effect of that. There is a lag in terms of how long it takes for your mind to adjust to the new prices, because subconsciously, most of us wire everything to a dollar and cent amount relative to the cost of the good. So you may have a bias in your head that 30 plus million or 25 plus million means franchise player. You may also see it as, you know, $45 million means super duper star, right? Whereas under the next CBA, 45 million might be, I'm not going to say it's pennies. It's not pennies, but it might be a really good second option. Like a really good second option. League average goes up, you're going to start seeing the bump, right? It has to be weighted out in percentage points. You cannot weight it out in dollars and cents because it will never make sense to you. It has to be a percentage of something. It has to be related to something. Numbers cannot just be addressed in a vacuum. Otherwise, you know, NBA salaries compared to baseball salaries compared to soccer salaries just make no freaking sense. You have to contextualize it. The next CBA could go one of two ways. What is not up for debate is that the cap is going way up, right? Whether that will be addressed through cap smoothing, which is not what they did the last time. You remember the situation that allowed the Golden State Warriors to get Kevin Durant? Well, yeah. You remember the contract that Alan Crabb signed? Yeah. You remember Timothy Mozgov? Yeah. You give these teams all this money all at once, and you end up with contracts like Timothy Mozgov, right? You also end up with rare situations where a team that's highly competitive, like Golden State Warriors, can suddenly absorb a max player like Kevin Durant. It's crazy, right, that they were able to do that. And it tilted the entire league. This time, maybe they do cap smoothing, where that adjustment is made slowly across 3 to 4 years, right? That requires a little bit of patience from the Players Association, I think, you know, to not flood all of that money. And I guess it'll depend on their leadership. I trust the Players Association is in better hands this time around. Don't ask me how or why I think that, but I think they are. I think they're negotiating from a position of power. And I think they have a good vision for how they want to take this next CBA. There's a lot of money on the line, guys. When you start digging into that next CBA, the dollars that are going to be coming in, all the potential of streaming, the metaverse, all that shit, like the next 10 years of the NBA is going to be wild and wildly different from what the past 10 years is going to be like. So, yeah. Do a live stream. Who are you talking to? Oh, there he is. Who's where? What am I missing, guys? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the comments. Can someone tell me like what everyone's reacting to there? Yeah. So anyway, so I don't think 25 million is going to be a hell of a lot for Gary Trent Jr. You have to consider. Did you mention the CBA is definitely going to be addressing some of the issues? This CBA is definitely going to be addressing issues like what happened with. Yeah, that is something that has really put a bit of a dent into the negotiating power that the players have. But I think that the fact that those two are suddenly vibing will probably put them in a stronger position when they look at that this summer. But what I am saying is obviously that I don't think 25 million is a lot for a player who is going to be on the upswing for the next 4 to 5 years. I think when you're talking about dollars and cents, there's always going to be a concession that an agent and a team may draw in terms of years, options, all these things, right? Gary Trent Jr. signed a very bad contract for the Raptors the last time around, right? And I think I was on Facebook at the time talking about it, and I said that this was a terrible contract. I even went on a small YouTube channel and I talked about it, and I said this was a terrible contract for the Raptors because it sort of puts all of the it puts all of the control in the player's hands. He has a player option. So if he had a bad year, he's out. It's a really short-term contract to sign for a player with so much upside and all the potential to outperform that contract. He can just walk. And if we pissed him off enough, he really could walk. I think the only way to salvage the situation, obviously, is to break bread, make peace with the situation. Maybe be a little bit more certain about his role going forward, whether he's going to be on the bench, whether he's going to be starting. I mean, maybe him starting right now is just out of desperation because the lineup, with the center wasn't working. Or maybe this is the apology. Maybe this is the, hey, okay, we had a bad month. We put you on the bench. You've proven something to us. So we're going to start you for the rest of the year, and hopefully you don't just walk for nothing. But I think that if you are the Raptors, then that becomes a very real possibility. And because you really can't, apart from a handshake, wink, wink, behind the scenes deal, you can't really sign a contract with him prior to the end of the year. And he could just walk for nothing. And that's quite a hefty asset to just let walk out the door for a team that has already, by the way, allowed Marc Gasol to walk for nothing, Serge Ibaka to walk for nothing, Danny Green to walk for nothing, right? Kyle Lowry, okay, he walked for something, but Kawhi Leonard walked for nothing. You can't keep losing assets this way, especially in a year where you're not competitive. Gary Trent certainly isn't helping you lose right now. He's helping you win. Fred VanVleet, despite what some people might think, is not really, it's questionable, but I don't necessarily think in a mathematical and probably logical place, I don't think he's helping you lose. I think he's barely helping you win. He's not helping you enough winning, but the analytics would still say that Fred VanVleet is a positive and that Gary Trent is a somewhat positive. So I don't think that you can allow these guys to walk for nothing. I think they're both sour with certain situations. I don't think they're sour about the same thing. I don't think they're on the same side, but I do think that the possibility of them opting out, declining the player option and just walking, that there will be a market for them, that teams are aware the CBA is going up, and they'll plan for that right away, even though it's not going up right away next year. I think there will be some team. The reason that the Raptors are in a pretty disadvantageous situation is when you start to consider how many players they're going to need to re-sign, and even with that new CBA. So, you have Pascal Siakam. Some people have said, oh, well, we don't want to pay Pascal Siakam 25% of the cap. That's a lot of money. Yes, that is a lot of money, but that's not actually what he's eligible for. He's eligible for 35%. And that's a lot of money to pay to a player who maybe, in my opinion, on the downside of his career towards the back end of that contract. Then there's OG Anunoby, a guy who I think signed probably the most team-friendly deal in NBA history. They should probably, I'm not saying they should investigate it, but I can't believe that his agent signed that contract. And people are saying he's going to command more. He should have commanded more in this last contract. I have no idea. He gave up everything. He had no player option, right? He has no player option on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 4-year deal, so he didn't get term. He didn't get money. He didn't get the option. It is who is your agent, man? Like that guy should be fired. OG Anunoby not getting at least $20 million on his last deal or not getting a player option is stupid, because you know what? Right now, if he had a player option, he could pretty much decline it and seek a max at the end of the year. And I guarantee you there's some team out there that would pay him a max. So Oak Tree saying because of the injuries, I get it. DeJounte Murray right now is criminally underpaid as well. If the Spurs are a model franchise, and we can look at what RC Buford does as a logical pathway, the Spurs actually did trade DeJounte Murray because of his previous contract being so low. And we can probably get into that when we have more time. We are over 2 hours right now. But basically, signing low contracts does have an impact on your next contract. So there's limits to that. OG wasn't looking like that. I mean, buddy, this is a guy who's been starting, with the exception of the year Kawhi came into the Raptors for about 1 year. He's a starter since his rookie season, and he is one of the more coveted 3-and-D guys. I mean, injury history notwithstanding, he's not missed entire seasons. Like, he's missed games here, games there. I think a lot of his injury stuff is overblown. I did this comparison at the beginning of this year, and I said that he and Fred VanVleet have pretty much missed almost an identical number of games over the last 3 years. And he's missed games for like completely random reasons. Like he missed time for COVID. He missed time for personal issues. He missed time for, I believe it was an appendix or appendectomy or something. He missed time because of his father's passing. Rest in peace, to OG's dad. So, I mean, it's not all injuries. You can't just look at games played every single year and be like, okay, well, this guy's averaging 60 games. That means he's a guaranteed lock to miss 20 to 22 games every single year. Does he have a player option? Hold on. I'm going to pull up the Raptors contracts. We're talking about it. Hang on. Hang on, everyone. We're going to pull up the Sport Track thing so that we are clear on what we're talking about here. Hang on. Hoops. Hype. Hang on, y'all. Just take a look at this. Correct, you are. OG Anunoby does have a player option there. My bad, y'all. Okay, so his agent did negotiate that for him. However, I think he made a concession on 2 of the points, which is the number of years, and here we go. Okay, so we're going to pull up the contracts. Okay, so these are the Raptors contracts for this year going forward, right? You have Pascal Siakam. There's no option there, right? You have Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and then you are in the exact same situation as you were with Gary with OG the next year, where he has that player option. He can opt out. Chris Boucher, 3-year term. Thaddeus Young, 2-year deal. I believe Otto Porter is a player option for next year. But yeah, you got to look at how do you keep this core together, right? Because that 24, 25, or even the 23, 24, this is technically a contract year for Pascal Siakam in a lot of ways, because he could sign a contract extension as of this offseason up until a certain mark, I think in October. I'll have to check that. But, Fred VanVleet, obviously, he could have signed an extension anytime. So that those zeros at 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27, you can just say thank you to Fred VanVleet, a guy that we kind of shit on a lot, and I definitely shit on a lot. But man, if the Raptors really did offer that contract extension, just imagine how you might feel about this team right now, if he had signed it. Then again, catch 22. If he signs it, maybe he doesn't press as much. Maybe he gets back surgery if he had signed it. So bet on yourself is a reverse curse. No matter how you look at it, there's it goes both ways. Clutch Tatum says, correct, right? Again, under the next CBA, right now, you're getting guys like Chris Boucher, who are on their 3rd contract. If I'm not mistaken, Chris Boucher is on his 3rd contract. You're getting him for 10, 11, 12 million. You're getting Thad Young on the back end. Otto Porter, again, that has been a bit of a flop due to injury, but I assure you he's way better than the money he was making this year, just the injury concerns. William Chan says, back surgery is mad risky for questionable benefit. I'm curious if you're approaching that from a... nameless, it takes 2 people to sign a contract. Okay, so if the Raptors have decided that they're going to move him, he can't just kind of come out of nowhere and say, hey, here's that. I don't think that that's how this is going to work. If he had that contract in his back pocket, for most of the season, I do not disagree that he's had that contract in his back pocket. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that contract was informally offered. Okay, but he's done a lot of weird shit over the last 3 months that I've been pretty vocal about. And I would not be surprised if the Raptors have decided to move on, go younger, and just call it a tank, call it a plug, whatever, and just decide to move him on. I don't know. But he mentioned in a post-game presser once when he addressed it, and he said, that's the final time I'm going to address it, first and last time I'm going to address this. I can't believe my contract situation became a talking point. I don't know where this stuff comes from. Whenever he did that, okay, he did say, and guys, by the way, I do have a player option. By the way, you don't do that. You don't opt into a player option on your, when you're 29 and you're an undersized guard, if you have the option of taking 4 years or 114. You just don't. It's just, I'm sorry, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. And then, if you do opt into that player, it's do or die. You sustain an injury, you might be in the G League the next year. You do not turn down $114 million. I'm telling you guys, put it together for yourself. He does not have that contract on the table anymore. So Nameless, I disagree with you. I understand that theoretically he could if the offer was on the table, but I think it takes two to tango, and I don't think he has that contract anymore. That would be a dream come true. MSJ, yeah. Pascal for Evan Mobley, yep. Okay, I mean that's really good to know. And you know what? I would love at some point if, there is someone with a significantly greater knowledge of the body and injuries to come and explain how his back injury is impacting him, because I'm telling you, man, his shot form looks different. The way he's gathering into the shots looks different. The way he's moving on defense looks different. So we don't know how much injuries and or a persistent, pain is bothering him. We don't know what he's playing through. I have no idea. A lot of the media members have made excuses for him. I'm certainly not going to make excuses for the guy, but I am aware of it, right? That this is a far cry. Like what we saw in the playoffs and what we've seen in 2022 up until, we're in 2023 right now, guys. He's been bad since the calendar turned on 2022. Like January last year was pretty much like the tail end of good Fred VanVleet. February onward, it was pretty much like 35%, 29% every single night. He took a major step back. So for me, it's like, if that's the player he's going to be from here on out, like that's over a year. I mean, is it injuries? Because this is not normal. It's not normal. We have seen guards lose a step. This is not losing a step. This is going like 5 steps. We're talking a guy who was consistently 3.5 to 4.5 box plus minus. And this is a guy who currently, if I'm not mistaken, has 0 defensive box plus minus. Like he has taken such a step. It's not even the offense. The offense has always been streaky. It's not just the offense. It's the defense. It's the defense that allowed him to be on the court despite being so undersized, despite, being short on the contests and stuff. And the league has just gone bigger and bigger. There's a reason why Vision 6-9 exists. It's because there's a trend line of people just getting bigger. Look at the players in the next year's draft. Find a player. Here's a fun exercise. Okay, I'm gonna pull it up and we're just gonna look at it. Okay, I'm just gonna look at, and that's gonna be the final thing for tonight. Just gonna look at it, just to give you an idea of where the league is trending. Right? We always talk about centers being phased out. Hold on. Just take a look at this. So this is every single player currently mocked in the lottery. Top 15 picks. And we're just going to take a look. Okay? And tell me if you see something. Hang on. Do you notice it? The shortest guy there is number 2 pick, Scoot Henderson, who is potentially still growing and may end up being closer to 6'3". He's a pretty big dude if you've seen him. I doubt that this is accurate. 6'2", 195 feels very inaccurate. I've seen him, standing next to some guys who are pretty tall. He looks like a good 6'3", super long arms. He is a big point guard, guys. Brandon Miller, huge, long, small forward. Anthony Black, again, a big guard. Grady Dick, a big guard. It's just like you just go down the list and you're like, where are the 6'0" guys? Where are the 5'11" players? And, here's another string of guys coming into the league where you're going to have a guy who can't guard them. Let's be honest. Scoot Henderson, like Fred VanVleet, Scoot Henderson, one-on-one matchup, that's not going to end up well. It's not going to end up well. Okay? He's too physically dominant. So you just have big wings, you know, guys who maybe 20 years ago would have been centers are now like small forwards. Guys who may have been small forwards and shooting guards last year are developing ball skills at an early age and they're playing point. 6'5", 6'6" point guards. That's going to be the new norm. I don't think that in 20 years, apart from very few exceptions, I think height inflation is a thing too. We have talked about stats inflation briefly, but I think it's worth noting that I don't think that 25 points per game is what it used to mean. When you consider the output that teams are going at, you are talking about almost every team in the league right now, guys. I mean, hold on, just put this into perspective for anyone out there. The Phoenix Suns, their 7 seconds or less offense, it would be like, I think, league average or below league average today. That offense, that was consistent. That's how everyone plays now. Okay? So when everyone's playing like that, then everyone's stats are massively inflated due to pace, due to rules, due to defense, right? Rules like take fouls. I got into this in my 10 myths about the NBA video. If you haven't checked out that video, I think it's informative and it talks about stat inflation. 25 points per game isn't what it used to be. Did you rate guys back in 2004 who were putting up 21 points per game as MVP candidates? No, you didn't. You were waiting for guys to put up 26, 27, 28, 30, Well, 30, 35 is a new 30. Almost every single night, there's a guy who goes off for 35 to 40 points. Every single night. There's, these aberrations. These are not accidents. The league has gotten more talented. The league has gotten deeper. I very much think that we could expand to 32 teams and not lose a step right now. And that definitely should be where this league goes in the next 3-4 years. You should see another team in Seattle, maybe a team in Vancouver. And then put the Minnesota Timberwolves back in the East so we can, have another team that we can beat up on. But I think we talk a lot about guys like Roy Hibbert, how the league just passed them by. They were great one day, and then it just felt like the next day they just weren't, you couldn't play them anymore because the league changed, the talent changed. Well, I think Fred VanVleet is in a unfortunately similar situation. As an older, undersized guard, I think he's hit an upper limit. Would I be surprised to see him traded, put up 18 points per game on somewhat solid efficiency? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think that's perfectly within the realm of possibilities. However, another thing I will say, those guys that I just showed you, right? That entire group of players, this entire group of players, none of them, and I do mean none of them, are mocked or projected in their first 3 years, like after 3 years when they're sort of like entering, real-time territory as NBA players. None of them are expected to be low efficiency players. None of them. Analytics are taking over the league, okay? So guys who are super low efficiency, guys who consistently shoot in the 30s, guys who, this is just not where the league is going. That's another thing. You need to look at how well the teams, it's perfectly acceptable for now a league average 3-point shooter is 35%. That used to be a decent 3-point shooter. It's gone up. As you work on shots more and more from a young age, if you're a youth trainer, I wish Brian was here right now. He could probably speak so much to this. But if you're a trainer working with a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, I got to tell you, very quickly, you are working on the 3. You're working on it way faster than we used to 20 years ago. So as you develop that skill, guys are coming into the league more and more. So as these waves of talent come into the league, you're just going to see stacks of big, efficient guards. You cannot be competitive if you are hoping to be competitive in the next 4 years by not having a guy who fits that mold. That is a big reason why I think you need to move on from Fred. I think it's also a big reason why Scottie needs to keep working on that 3. I think that's a big reason why, you probably have to hold on to OG Anunoby. I think it's maybe a reason why you can let go of Gary Trent Jr. and sleep well at night. But I think the Raptors have some very big decisions coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I think this is, given the assets that are on this team right now, given the state of the league, given the parity that is in the league right now, given the considerable brain trust that is managing these assets right now for the Toronto Raptors and Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri, considering the young talent that you have on this team that I addressed earlier, specifically Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, Christian Koloko, Precious Achiuwa, I think the Raptors are set up to be in a 3-week stretch where they could do one of two things. Either play it safe, maybe too safe, maybe be too conservative, lose assets for nothing in the offseason, potentially have a max player in Pascal Siakam going into next season with all the leverage, maybe sour, potentially. Losing Fred VanVleet is not going to be a win in Siakam's book. They are obviously very tight. They may be a package deal. You have no idea. We don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know Pascal Siakam or Fred VanVleet, but you could look at it as max players have options. That's kind of why they're max players. The Raptors have had issues in the past retaining max players. I know that most people probably have some sort of subconscious bias towards Siakam because he's not an American. He's not an American guy. He's not a McDonald's All-American. He wasn't a super highly touted player. So you just assume, you take it for granted that he's definitely going to come back. You don't know that. You don't know that. Okay. And God help me, nobody say, oh, because he's African, he's going to come back. It's like, I've heard that comment echoed in so many places. It's not true. This is a businessman. These are all business people. They're all basketball players with huge aspirations. And trust me, if he's not happy here, he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to be here, there will be 10 teams that will be willing to sign him tomorrow because they're so starved for a top 15 player. So, Clutch Tatum saying Serge Ibaka left. Exactly. Right. So, and first of all, Serge Ibaka didn't leave. We lowballed him on the contract offer because we were setting up for Giannis. Serge very much wanted to stay, just in case anyone didn't know that. There's a reason why he's doing a show, and it's on Canadian TV. He has a really good relationship with us. Anyway, that's it for the show, and to the 273 people watching. You know what's crazy? Today I checked out Kwame Brown's stream, and he had 300 people watching. And Kwame has like 40,000, followers or something like 400,000. He has a crazy number of subscribers, and it's just much bigger than this channel, obviously. And it was just like, okay, stop spamming. Stop spamming. I'm not Masai Ujiri. I'm gonna put you in a timeout. Sorry, like when you do that, you just seem crazy. Like don't spam the chat. So I'm very humbled by the support. To the 273 people here, please do me the biggest favor in the world, and please share this video very proudly and loudly. People need to see it. My biggest fear is that we're going to have a lot of people who see this video, who wanted to see this video, who follow this channel. I'm going to be honest, this video was as much, about giving this channel a bit of a, something that you guys would really enjoy. But it needs to go beyond this channel. It needs to go beyond this community. It needs to echo. These points need to echo. So people who maybe have been huge Barnes detractors, the media, all these people, they need to see this video. So biggest favor that you can do is share it on social, share it on Twitter, tag Pensare Basketball if you would like. Don't tag us if you don't like, but share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, put a link in your stories. Let's get this out there. It has about 4,000 views right now. Let's see if we can get it up to 10,000 views. I'll be very happy if this video gets 10,000 views. It's not that I'm hungry for the revenue. I would donate all of that revenue in a heartbeat. I don't care about the revenue of the video or the super chats as much as I appreciate them. It's not about that. It's just about making sure that that message, which I think is very important, about, who Scottie is, how much he worked, I think it needs to be out there, because when I looked at the impressions on that Doug Smith tweet about questioning Scottie's work ethic, the number of people who saw that tweet from Kyle Kuzma, the impressions on it, guys, were 5.2 million. This was literally national, and being honest, Scottie's my favorite player. It really bothered me. And there was a reason that I wanted to do that interview with Brian, because I really wanted someone who was there to talk about what Scottie did this offseason. Obviously Scottie's play is speaking for itself right now. All these people who said that he didn't work hard probably look pretty stupid right now. and I hope they continue to look stupid for the next 20 years. I hope he becomes a Hall of Famer. I hope he wins MVPs, and we can look back on the credibility of the people who were calling him, a bust, or saying that Franz Wagner. Trust me, I screenshotted a lot. But I need this video to get out there, guys. So please do share it. I'll be very, very appreciative. And if you don't have the link for whatever reason, it's pinned as the video on the channel, but I'm going to actually put the link in the chat. And this is a slightly corrupt thing for me to ask, but if you would like to really help, it really does help the numbers. I've studied YouTube extensively. And Tampa Bay Raptors, was Fred VanVleet made available to the media tonight? No, he wasn't. If you have an internet connection, I just put it in the chat, put that video on play, put it in the background. I don't care if you turn the volume off, just let it run. Okay? Because right now, I think the average view duration is about 22 minutes. That's insanely good for a 57-minute video. Trust me, like, we've put up hour-long videos that have retention rates of like 12 minutes. So people are watching this, but every time someone watches it fully throughout, engages with it, comments on it, it lets the YouTube algorithm pick it up and it pushes out to more people. It's one of the least watched videos in terms of impression rate that we've ever put out on the channel. It has a dog shit impression rate. So maybe that's my bad. Maybe the thumbnail wasn't catchy enough or something, but I can't let my inadequacy in this situation as a YouTuber impact the overall reach of that video. So please help out. And that is my final note of the night. 2.5 hours in, enjoy the tank. On Arima Babe, on which video? This video. I'm just putting it in the chat. It's the Scottie video. Yeah, it's the interview with Scottie and his trainer. Alrighty, thank you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you to Recruiter Guy for the super chat. I really appreciate it. I know someone else was talking at that time, and I couldn't thank you, but I did put your comment on, and I want to say thank you. I'm glad you took the under on that one. Thank you so much as well. One more thing, can you write in the chat, like, for the next game, because these games are becoming less and less meaningful. So obviously I would like to do something else with these live streams. I want to add some more value. So can you just write in the chat right now, if you're still watching, because there's 240 of you still in here, is there a particular topic, like a subtopic in the next post game that you really want me to get into? Because what we can do with these chats and these live streams, despite what some people may think, we can get pretty advanced with them. We can do film breakdowns. We can talk about a particular player's analytics. We can break that down. So, okay. Trade options. Okay. Let's do trade options. I think that's we did that show once where you call in with your trades. I am Masai Ujiri, you're the opposing team, and I give you a realistic thing. Draft players, draft prospects, top European prospects. Should we move on from Nick Nurse? CBA. Play breakdowns. Okay. Oh, notice, Scottie Barnes fans, play fans, if you are curious, there's a very, very cool video by Samson Folk and a scout that they did on Raptors Republic, which breaks down Scottie's new role as a center, sort of like a point center that he's playing with Fred VanVleet. If you really don't understand like the technicalities of basketball and in terms of pistol action and how certain picks or whatever, and if you don't want to watch that, I think, for whatever reason, if you don't feel like watching it, I think that's something I could do as well. Like, I could definitely break down how he's being used. I kind of don't want to do it because I think it's almost like conceding that he's a center. And I think that he's making a very temporary concession to play center to allow Fred VanVleet to boost his trade value. Hammer action, stagger action, horns, opinion of the coaching staff. How do you move away from leadership amicably, generally not regarding this team only? Who do you mean? Like Fred VanVleet, or tips on life? Drink water. That's my tip on life. Drink lots of water. Offense breakdown in the fourth quarter today was a little poor. Ever going to learn how to shoot well? That actually would be really interesting to go through the evolution of his jump shot from Florida State, from high school, and just kind of break down like the mechanics of his shot. I don't know if that's like a real huge subtopic. I don't think I can talk extensively. I'm not a player development coach, right? I was a shooter myself, but like I don't think I would need to bring on somebody who's like a real expert in like shooting mechanics, so I'm not talking out of my ass on that. Options for coaches out there? That's interesting. Zone versus man defense, advantages and disadvantages. Okay. That's funny. Actually, very true. That's funny. Okay, can I end the night on a funny story? I've ended the night on like some very downbeat stories. But this is funny. I'm gonna end the night on a funny story for once. Okay, so when I was 22, 23, there's a couple I knew that had their birthday on the same day. Shout out Sarah and Quentin if you ever end up watching this per chance. Super cool people. They just had a kid. Bless up and congratulations to those guys. So I show up at their party and there's this girl who, and I'm single at that time, and there's this girl who's looking at me and she's got a guy. She's sitting on his lap. And this girl is like, she's asking me all sorts of personal questions about, oh my God, it's so impressive. You know, like when people fan over you, it's very uncomfortable for you, but it's even more uncomfortable because she's sitting on her boyfriend's lap. All right. So at that point, I had just come back from Serbia and I had bought a 500 milliliter bottle of rakia. This is like what this guy's talking about. It's like a plum brandy from Serbia. It's extreme, guys. It's like 65-70% alcohol. It's crazy. It's not crazy for me. I'm used to it. Trust me, I don't need chase. I don't suck on limes or anything like that. I'm a pro drinker. I don't drink much, but yeah. Anyways, so this guy is listening to his girlfriend talk about like, oh my God, we gotta find you a girl at the club. You're so cool. You're this, you're that. And he's looking hella uncomfortable. But he doesn't know how to play this off. And honestly, in his position, I wouldn't know how the hell to play this off either. It's very weird. So what he says is, what's in the bottle? And I explain it to him. And he doesn't know. He doesn't know what this is, right? So he's like, nah, you're capping. That's not, he didn't say you're capping, but he's like, you're lying. That's not 70%. I'm like, smell it. Smell it. I dare you. So he smells it. He nearly threw up. Because it's extreme, right? When you smell like 70% alcohol and you're sensitive to that smell, is extreme. So then he tells me, he's like, I will pay you $50 if you chug that. So I did. I chugged it. I chugged the whole thing. And he was flabbergasted. Like he did not know what hit him. He did not expect me to do it. But this guy won. This guy won so hard. He won so hard because I was good. I got into a club after that. I chugged 500 milliliters of 70% and I got into a club after that. And the guy did not stop me, looked at my ID, said, all right, go in, sir. Then I go into the club, right? Order a couple of drinks, a couple of beers. I took one sip of that. It was a Stella or a Corona or something. Carlsberg. I don't remember, but I got in beers for the birthday couple, and I got a beer for myself. And his girl that was like fanning over me was kind of giving me the eyes of like, let's do something after, fuck this guy that I'm dating. So that was, and I can't tell you that I was going to say no, because I was really kind of bothered by that guy. And I maybe not the most ethical thing to admit, but she was kind of hot. So I took one sip of that beer, yo. I dropped both bottles on the dance floor. I do not remember what happened next, other than I definitely was on the street at some point. Someone tried to give me a hot dog. I definitely threw up. I got into a cab at some point. I know that because I got a debit bill for the cab. I wound up at home somehow. I don't know how I got home. I have no idea. Trust me, like the next concrete memory I have is I'm on my floor. Okay. I passed out like in my front foyer, like dead. I literally just made it into the house. Didn't lock the door. Door was wide open when I woke up, and I passed out on the floor. So was it worth it for $50? Well, it gets worse because at that time I had a dog, and I wish I could just bring him on the chat. Maybe one day I'll bring my dog on the chat. He's very cute and very funny, and he's still alive and kicking with us. And he was two and a half at that point, so he was going through a weird teething phase. And I had a BlackBerry, and I had fallen asleep with my BlackBerry, and I just put it on the floor. And I woke up, and my dog had a new chew toy. He chewed my entire BlackBerry. So to that guy, I hope that girl was worth it. You messed up my life for an entire day, man. And I was so immature at that point that I actually took that bet. But I did win that bet. I wasn't a chicken shit about it. But yeah, if there's a lesson in this, don't chug 70% alcohol. You will ruin your life. All right, I hope that was a pretty funny way to end this chat. My life has been pretty colorful sometimes, so sometimes it's kind of cool to talk about it. Lesson learned, I'm sure. I'd love to tell you I didn't do it again. I did it like 5 other times in the next year. So no, I think I went the other way, but I don't do that anymore. So anyway, have a good night, guys. Wishing you a very good night, and tank on. Cheers.